Chapter 765. Was he still human? Wang Shuji couldn't help but feel bewildered and a little flustered. He suddenly realized that he might not be a match for him either. On the other hand, Aosu didn't use his full strength because of his underestimation of Ziyue. Therefore, when the flying sword approached, he truly sensed the terror of the sword. He hurriedly threw out a sharp horn to block it while retreating rapidly. However, the power of Ziyue's sword was truly terrifying. Because of the flying sword's sharpness, it was even stronger than the magnetic slash. As such, with just a slight touch, it easily pierced through the horn, which was comparable to a mid-grade essence soul treasure. It didn't lose any momentum as it continued to stab toward Aosu. Damn it! Aosu's expression changed as he felt a strong sense of danger. In his panic, he happened to see Sea Shark, who was also retreating not far away. He made up his mind and swung his dragon tail, instantly spinning. With a howl, he swept Sea Shark Demon King in front of him. Aosu, I #% yen*@%. Sea Shark was terrified and cursed angrily. However, Aosu was a mid-stage essence soul realm great demon king after all. His bloodline talent was astonishing and his strength was terrifying. He couldn't break free at all. Immediately after, the flying sword arrived and instantly pierced his body. Uffed, a terrifying power erupted. It directly pierced through its body. The sharp sword Chi followed a strange trajectory, wantonly destroying its flesh, blood, vitality, and primordial spirit. It tore the thousand-piercing terror of the thorn into pieces. Dead. Everyone's expression changed. Demon Monarch Sea Shark was not weak. Although it was because of Aosu's sneak attack, the outcome still shocked them. It should be pointed out that Demon King Aosu was even stronger. Although he was only at the mid-stage of the primordial spirit realm, his battle prowess was actually not weaker than a late-stage primordial spirit realm expert. Bai Ziyue's sword was originally aimed at Demon King Aosu. If not for the fact that he knew he could not avoid it, why would he use his technique to block Demon King Sea Shark, who had always been following him? In other words, Ziyue's sword was enough to threaten a late-stage primordial spirit realm expert. You've underestimated him. His strength is absolutely not inferior to mine in the slightest. In fact, he's even stronger than me. Aosu's expression was ugly. It was indeed fearful when it faced Bai Ziyue's sword head-on. He knew that, with his strength, even if he managed to block the attack, he would still be severely injured. Because of this, after weighing the pros and cons, he had placed Sea Shark Demon King in front of him to block this attack for him. Right now, as it watched the other party die, it did not feel any guilt in its heart. However, it still felt shock and lingering fear. They all have some tricks up their sleeves. Ziyue was slightly surprised, but he wasn't surprised. As a mid to late stage essence spirit realm expert, which one of them did not have one or two trump cards to protect themselves? Be it Confucian God Wang Shuji or Demon King Aosu, neither of them were weak. However, that's all, Ziyue muttered as lightning once again appeared on his body. The flying sword buzzed and vibrated, as if it was brewing a murderous intent. Quick, let's join forces. Wang Shuji turned pale with fright. He had just blocked Bai Ziyue's attack and was already severely injured. He did not have the confidence to face Bai Ziyue's attack again, so he hurriedly shouted at Wan Zhongyun and Hua Dingshan. Previously, it was the three of them who had joined forces to block Aosu and Sea Shark Demon King and gain the upper hand in the battle for the True Dragon's corpse. Wan Zhongyun's expression changed as he hesitated. He had seen Ziyue's strength with his own eyes. If possible, he would not want to provoke him. Fellow Taoist Wang, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. In comparison, Hua Dingshan was much more decisive. Not only did he reject them directly, but he also flew away from the True Dragon's corpse. As the old city lord of the Great Whale Immortal City, he was naturally very observant. In addition, when he met his son, Hua Fengyu, he learned from Hua Fengyu that Bai Ziyue was able to kill primordial spirit realm beginner and intermediate primordial spirit realm sea demons. Therefore, He dared not provoke by Ziyue. Therefore, when Ziyue appeared, he was actually the most nervous. He was also the only primordial spirit realm expert present who was submissive in front of Ziyue. Go! Ziyue used the lightning escape light and approached again. He waved his hand, and a ball of spiritual light was released. It rapidly radiated and landed on Wang Xueji's body. ZZZ. An invisible binding force almost instantly sealed his primordial spirit in his body, making him unable to move at all. Then, the flying swords around him flashed. Boom, boom, boom. This sword was swift and nimble. The flying swords streaked across the void, causing a loud boom. Save me, Wang Xueji shouted in shock as he frantically burned the power of his primordial spirit to wear down the sealing force. He quickly retreated, trying to use all his strength to continue resisting. He wanted to save himself. However, Ziyue's sword was too fast. A sword streaked across the primordial spirit. Its trajectory seemed clear, but when one looked at it, the flying sword was no longer in its original position. In addition, he had been sealed by Ziyue's great spirit sealing technique. Even though he managed to break free in an instant in a battle between experts, he could attack countless times in a single breath. In fact, he did not even have time to react before the flying sword streaked across the primordial spirit. Poof! It directly penetrated his head. I thought he was strong. Now, it seems like he's just SOSO. This thought flashed through Ziyue's mind. He knew that it was because his strength had increased again. If he was still at the late or mid-stage Golden Core realm, he would naturally have to retreat when facing Wang Xueji, who was at the mid-stage primordial spirit realm and had outstanding battle records. On the other hand, Mo Fan, who he was previously wary of, was probably just SOSO. After all, he was only at the mid-stage primordial spirit realm. He was no match for a true late-stage primordial spirit realm expert. On the other hand, his combat strength was truly at the late-stage primordial spirit realm. In fact, he could even be considered an expert among those at the late-stage primordial spirit realm. If he were to use his Taoist techniques, after killing Wang Xueji with a single sword strike, Ziyue did not stop at all. He controlled the flying sword to flash again and quickly closed in on Ao Su. In the world of immortal spells, strength was everything. If one did not want others to look down on him, he had to display extraordinary combat strength. For example, when he first appeared, any primordial spirit realm cultivator dared to reprimand and insult him. However, when he attacked consecutively and killed many primordial spirit realm experts, no one present dared to look down on him anymore. Even Fu Yunfan and the wraith-devouring demon supremacy, who were at the late-stage primordial spirit realm, looked solemn and alert to the extreme. Obviously, they already regarded him as an existence at the same level. However, it's still not enough. Just showing his strength was not enough for him. What he wanted to do was to establish his dominance. Although the early-stage primordial spirit realm demon King Sea Shark and the mid-stage primordial spirit realm demon King Confucian were not weak, in his opinion, they were not at the peak of the mid-stage primordial spirit realm. With the support of the bloodline power, his combat strength was comparable to the third-tier late-stage primordial spirit realm demon King Ao Su. Ao Su acknowledged Ziyue's strength, but it did not mean that he was really afraid of him. With a cold snort, he revealed his true form of a black dragon. The towering horn on his head was like a long spear. The huge dragon head was somewhat similar to the true dragon on the ground. The black scales on his body shone with a dim light. Due to his anger, they were slightly erect like the tip of a blade. It was extremely cold. With a swing of his tail, a terrifying force swept out. Bam! As the scales and flesh splattered, Ziyue's flying sword was finally sent flying. Oh! Immediately after, Ao Su let out a dragon-like roar. Then, he transformed into threads filled with destructive power and quickly swept in the direction of Ziyue. It also extended its dragon claw. Although it seemed to be moving slowly, when it extended its claw, the gigantic illusory dragon claw actually arrived before by Ziyue before the threads of destructive power could reach him. You do have some skills. Ziyue's heart skipped a beat. A black thread silently rushed out and ruthlessly slashed out. It was the magnetic slash. With all of that, it collided with the illusory dragon claw. With a slight pause, the illusory dragon claw was sliced into pieces. The remaining power of the illusory dragon claw did not diminish. It collided with the destructive threads and rapidly sliced them into pieces. However, although the attack power of the magnetic slash was strong, its attack range was limited after all. Only the destructive threads in one direction were destroyed, while the destructive threads in other directions were like a giant net that enveloped heaven and earth, locking him in the void and then strangling him down. Rumble. The void was sliced apart by the destructive threads, seemingly turning into pieces. Divine Five Emperor's Robe. Ziyue's expression was calm. A robe quickly appeared and covered his body. The destructive threads all landed on the robe, making sizzling sounds, but could not penetrate at all. It's time to end this. Ziyue looked at the corpses of Sea Shark Demon King and Wang Xueji on the ground. The essence of their flesh, blood, and Yuan Qi were rapidly draining away. In his anxiety, he could not care about the consumption of his Jindan essence. The Tao Technique seed of the magnetic divine light in his body condensed, and a faint light flashed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a dazzling divine light that seemed to contain the endless colors of heaven and earth appeared in Ziyue's hand. Then he stretched out his hand and casually waved it. Chi, chi, chi. When the divine light shot out, the endless threads of destruction disappeared without a trace the moment they came into contact with the divine light. What? This attack, the power of this attack. Demon King Ao Su's eyes widened in disbelief. The profundity and terror of the attack caused a strong sense of fear to rise from the bottom of its heart. Before, he knew that Ziyue was extremely powerful and was not weaker than him. In fact, he was even slightly stronger than him. However, he was not afraid. This was because he knew that even if he was no match for him, he could escape with his own strength. But at this moment, facing the dazzling divine light, he truly felt despair. It was unstoppable. The power of this attack had already surpassed the limits of the late primordial spirit realm and reached the peak of the primordial spirit realm. It could break through the barrier of space and was not something he could withstand. Therefore, he hardened his heart. The scales that were originally giving off a dim light rapidly crumbled and broke apart. Thick blood spurted out from the broken scales. Moreover, its tail was also frantically burning at this moment. In the blink of an eye, it turned into ashes. Then his figure flashed, and his speed was extremely fast as he rushed straight into the distance. At this moment, he could be said to have used all his means. He successively used the scales bursting dam, flesh burning, tail severing, lifespan burning technique, and many other desperate techniques in order to escape as far as possible in the shortest time possible and escape from this attack. As for hiding, that was impossible. All remarkable abilities, great remarkable abilities, Tao techniques, especially when cultivated to a high level, had the ability to lock onto the target. If it was just a remarkable ability or great remarkable ability, with his strength and means, he could naturally break free from the lock and escape. For example, Ziyue was able to easily escape the locking power of Demon King Ao Su and Wang Xueji's attacks because of his extremely high level of strength and his strong control of the laws of heaven and earth. He was able to escape with the help of the lightning escape light. However, Ziyue's magnetic divine light was not only a Tao technique, but also a Tao technique that he had cultivated to perfection. Its level of strength and laws were too high and mysterious. He could not break free at all and could only rely on his extreme speed to dodge. He hoped that when he was far enough away, Ziyue's control of the divine light would be reduced and the power of the divine light would weaken. Only then would he be able to escape or disperse it. Trying to escape? Do you think you can escape? A faint light flashed in Ziyue's eyes. As if he had expected this, a human-shaped shadow rushed out from the top of his head in an instant. The shadow was extremely solid. He raised his eyes slightly and shouted softly. In an instant, a blurry ray of light shot out. It was he who had used his innate, remarkable ability, Spirit Absent-Minded. Moreover, because he knew that Demon King Ao Su's strength was extremely strong and his primordial spirit was stable, he poured a third of the soul great golden thread into it when he used his innate, remarkable ability. Sizzle. The blurry attack rushed out at a speed several times faster than Demon King Ao Su, who had unleashed his full strength and used many desperate techniques. In an instant, it rushed into his body and attacked his primordial spirit. Poof! As Ziyue's attack landed, Demon King Ao Su's body suddenly stiffened. His primordial spirit twitched and his face contorted. Even his body fell down. In the next moment, Ziyue's magnetic divine light swept over and directly covered him. Sizzle, his entire body, flesh, blood, and primordial spirit were directly shattered into powder and annihilated into ashes. Dead. Is this Taoist Northming's true strength? He killed Demon King Ao Su, who is comparable to a late-stage primordial spirit realm expert, with one blow. Isn't he too strong? I don't think there are many people in the entire Celestial Spirits sect who can match him. In the distance, True Venerate Mo Fan, who had been paying attention since Ziyue appeared and was about to abandon his opponent and attack him together, was stunned. He was stunned by the strength that Ziyue had displayed. He no longer dared to reveal the slightest killing intent in his eyes. Chapter 766. He was afraid. Ziyue's strength was far beyond his imagination. Such strength, such a strike. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful existence in the Dragon Palace. Fuyan Fan, the soul-devouring demon supremacy, and Demon King Song Gu watched the battle from afar. Their expressions changed, and a strong sense of fear grew in their hearts. In terms of strength, Ao Su wasn't weaker than any of them, yet he wasn't a match for Bai Ziyue and was annihilated by Bai Ziyue. So, they naturally felt apprehensive in their hearts and had some more misgivings. This battle ended very quickly. It only took a dozen breaths from start to finish. However, the outcome of the battle was beyond everyone's expectations. It was also extremely shocking and shocked everyone. It also allowed them to truly witness Ziyue's strength and remember the name Taoist Northming. They knew that although he was only at the peak of the Golden Core realm, he had the battle record of crushing many Primordial Soul realm experts and killing Demon King Ao Su, who was comparable to a late-stage Primordial Soul realm expert. If they returned to the Astral realm, it would not take long for Ziyue's battle record to spread across the world and shock countless people. Most importantly, Ziyue's Immortal Technique realm was only at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Compared to the strength he displayed, the huge difference made countless Primordial Soul realm cultivators doubt their lives. After killing Demon King Sea Shark, Wang Shueji, and Demon King Ao Su, Ziyue's expression was very calm. He did not speak and only looked around indifferently. Whether it was the turtle-feathered Demon King, Hua Dingshan, or Wan Zhongyun, none of them dared to meet his gaze. They even kept their distance and didn't dare to look at the true dragon corpse at his feet. Indeed, choosing to establish my dominance was the right choice. This way, it will be much quieter. No one will dare to be unlucky. Ziyue thought to himself and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He seemed to be having an easy time in this battle as he had slain several Primordial Soul realm experts in a short period of time. However, using so many offensive techniques in succession had definitely exhausted his Jinin essence. After all, he was only at the peak of the Gold Core realm. Even though his core energy was far richer and purer than other cultivators of the same realm, no matter if it was a Taoist technique or a perfect Grand Divine ability, the consumption after using it was extremely huge. Previously, because he had the attribute panel, he could use his soul energy to replenish it without limit. Naturally, he didn't need to worry. However, now that Xiao Qin's attribute panel was in the process of upgrading, he could not replenish his core essence. All he could rely on was his own core essence reserves. Naturally, this was insufficient. After such a short period of intense battle, he already felt a sense of dearth. If a few more Essence Soul Realm experts were to join the fray, he would probably have a headache as well. At this moment, the others were intimidated by his methods and did not dare to approach. However, he took this opportunity to use the Northern Underworld Mountain Spirit Vein in the Northern Underworld Grotto Heaven to rapidly recover his core essence. Then, he quickly looked at the corpse of the true dragon on the ground. Seeing the strands of essence of the true dragon's flesh and blood flowing away rapidly under the influence of an unknown force, his heart tightened. Without hesitation, his soul energy landed on the corpse of the true dragon. As expected of the corpse of a true dragon, its Taoist connotation is natural. Even when I approach it, I feel a strong pressure descending. It's really not that easy to keep it in my Northern Underworld Grotto Heaven. Ziyue's mind came into contact with the corpse of the true dragon. Under the obstruction of the Taoist connotation, he could clearly feel the difficulty. However, his soul was complete, and his resistance to the Taoist connotation was also far greater than other cultivators of the same realm. He was not weaker than a true primordial soul realm expert. With the help of the Great Spirit Golden Silk, he slowly invaded the corpse of the true dragon and covered it bit by bit. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. Ziyue's mind gradually covered the entire corpse of the true dragon. 10%, 20%, 30%. When his mind covered 100% of the corpse, he could directly keep it in his Northern Underworld Grotto Heaven or his storage bag. Soon. Once the corpse of the true dragon is taken away, it will definitely be much more difficult for the hidden extraterrestrial demon to recover. The closer it was to this moment, the more nervous Ziyue became. He knew that if the extraterrestrial demon wanted to recover as soon as possible, it would definitely not allow such a thing to happen. 50%, 60%, 70%. As time passed, all the black-scaled lizard demons had fallen under the attacks of the various cultivators. However, the battle did not stop. Instead, it was divided into 3 areas. The battle at the corpse of the true dragon had stopped because of Ziyue's strong suppression. The other 2 areas were at the corpse of the extraterrestrial demon and the demonic saber. The corpse of the extraterrestrial demon had a strange shape. Its Tao connotation contained the power of the laws of the outside world. It was very strange and unique. Its value was no less than that of the corpse of the true dragon. As such, Fu Yinfan, the archaic monster king, and other experts were fighting over it. As for the demonic saber, it was a weapon on the same level as a spiritual treasure. Although it was not suitable for cultivators to use, it could still be refined and used to increase a cultivator's strength. It was very attractive to many experts. Apart from the Wraith Demon Senior, who was compatible with the demonic saber, True Venerate Mo Fan, the golden-scaled monster king, and the others were all fighting fiercely for the demonic saber. Damn it! Compared to the Wraith Demon Senior, who is in the late stage of the primordial soul realm, and the golden-scaled monster king, who has a powerful bloodline, my advantage isn't that obvious. True Venerate Mo Fan felt helpless. After a fierce battle, he was under a lot of pressure. He could clearly feel the difference in strength between them. He looked at the demonic saber on the ground with a burning gaze. Then, he looked at Ziyue, who was trying his best to collect the corpse of the true dragon in the distance. He finally wanted to retreat. This was because he could not guarantee that Ziyue would not guess his goal and attack him. With the strength that Ziyue had displayed, he would most likely die if Ziyue attacked him. Therefore, after blocking another attack, he finally retreated unwillingly. After a slight hesitation, he went straight into the depths of the Dragon Emperor Palace. Even though there were 3 extremely valuable treasures in this battlefield, he could only look for other treasures when there were so many experts around. As a matter of fact, many experts had the same idea as him. Many cultivators who knew that they could not compete for the 3 treasures had already gone into the depths of the Dragon Emperor Palace. Kill! The Wraith Demon Senior held a demonic banner in his hand. Streams of terrifying black smoke spread out and swept toward the golden-scaled Monster King. Previously, it was very difficult for him to suppress the golden-scale Monster King because of True Venerate Mo Fan's restraint. However, now that True Venerate Mo Fan had retreated, it was much easier for him to attack. Die! The golden-scaled monster king roared. The trident in his hand stabbed out fiercely, as if it was going to pierce a hole in the heavens and earth. Under the terrifying, penetrating power, the Wraith Demon Senior could only block the attack. Between the two of them, the Wraith Demon Senior was at the late stage of the primordial soul realm, although the golden-scaled monster king was only at the mid-stage of the primordial soul realm. His bloodline was extraordinary. He was born with a trace of the true dragon's bloodline. He could fight across a small level and was not any weaker than the Wraith Demon Senior. The two of them fought fiercely and were soon evenly matched. It was very difficult to determine the winner in a short period of time. However, at this moment, a buzzing sound was heard. The demonic treasure saber, which had been standing still, suddenly trembled. Then, a special saber light shot out like a waterfall across the void and slashed toward the golden-scaled Demon King. Oh no! The demonic saber has awakened? The golden-scaled Monster King's expression changed drastically. He quickly activated the power of his bloodline. Suddenly, the shadow of a true dragon appeared in front of him. Then, the shadow instantly turned into a golden light and charged toward the saber light. Rumble! The saber light dimmed slightly, but it still cut through the dragon's soul. Then, with a slight movement, a deep wound appeared on the golden-scaled Monster King's body. What was even more terrifying was that the saber light contained a special and strange demonic aura. The moment it landed on the golden-scaled Monster King's body, it wantonly destroyed his body, causing his chi and blood to be corrupted. His primordial soul suffered a calamity and was severely injured. The demonic saber has awakened. Could it be that the weapon spirit of the demonic saber has automatically chosen its owner? Countless powerhouses cried out in surprise, revealing looks of shock. The demonic saber naturally had a weapon spirit. However, generally speaking, the saber would not take the initiative to attack a cultivator unless it automatically recognized its owner. At this moment, the soul-devouring demon supremacy, who was fighting the golden-scaled Monster King, was also extremely surprised. This was because he could clearly sense the joy of the weapon spirit of the demonic saber and its emotions of wanting to recognize him as its owner. Although this emotion was slightly obscure and vaguely wrong, the soul-devouring demon supremacy did not care. He guessed that this was because the weapon spirit was not powerful enough. Then, the demonic saber trembled slightly and soared into the sky, instantly landing in the soul-devouring demon supremacy's hand. He felt extremely relaxed and natural. It was as if he could refine the demonic saber with just a thought. The demonic saber has awakened and automatically recognized its owner. I never thought that I, the soul-devouring demon supremacy, would have such great luck. The soul-devouring demon supremacy was so excited that he was almost trembling. He did not care about the golden-scaled Monster King, who had already escaped after being severely injured. He hurriedly opened his mind and extended his divine consciousness. He knew that even if the demonic saber had automatically recognized its owner, he would still need to extend his divine consciousness into the demonic saber and leave his own divine consciousness imprint on it. However, this process was extremely easy and fast. He could complete it with just a thought. He was excited and looking forward to it. However, just as he relaxed his mind and planned to recognize the demonic saber as its owner as soon as possible so that he could exert the power of the demonic saber and compete for the other treasures, a terrifying demonic chi suddenly launched a swift and violent attack, directly surging toward his primordial spirit. Rumble! In merely a short period of time, his divine consciousness had already been stripped away, and his divine consciousness was completely controlled by the demonic saber. Roar! An excited roar was heard. Then, a trace of madness appeared in the soul-devouring demon supremacy's eyes. Then, he rapidly charged in the direction of Ziyue. Kill! He raised the demonic saber, and terrifying power spread out. Then he slashed out. When the saber light was slashed out, it was vast and mighty. It practically tore the entire world apart. This slash was extremely terrifying. It also contained an extremely profound power of the laws of Tao. Not only did it easily tear the world apart, It even borrowed the power of the world to carry the saber light's power and ruthlessly slashed out. What? This isn't the demonic saber recognizing its owner. The soul-devouring demon supremacy's mind has been taken away, and his actions are completely controlled by the demonic saber. He no longer has his own consciousness and has become the saber slave of the demonic saber. Just how high is the grade of this devil treasure? Even the soul-devouring demon supremacy, who is at the advanced primordial soul realm, could not resist it. Many of the surrounding experts were stunned and found it hard to believe. This demonic saber was only equivalent to an inferior grade numinous treasure in terms of grade. Although it was extremely powerful, its demonic chi could only affect cultivators at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. It would not have much effect on cultivators at the mid-stage or even late stage of the primordial spirit realm. Not only was the soul-devouring demon supremacy's strength shocking, reaching the advanced primordial soul realm, but he was also from the demonic sect. His natural resistance to demonic power was extremely strong. Logically speaking, his mind should not have been taken away, and he should not have been enslaved by the demonic saber. Although it was possible that the soul-devouring demon supremacy had lost his mind because the demonic saber had taken the initiative to recognize him as its owner, it still shocked everyone. The extraterrestrial demon has finally shown himself. He can't help but make his move. Ziyue had been paying attention to the battlefield and naturally knew what was happening in the distance. He almost instantly guessed that all of this was the work of the extraterrestrial demon. Moreover, after deducing all of the signs, he understood even more. In the battle 30,000 years ago, the extraterrestrial demon had indeed suffered unimaginable injuries. Not only had his physical body and vitality been obliterated, but his own primordial spirit had also suffered unimaginable injuries and had fallen into a deep slumber. However, as time passed, his primordial spirit slowly recovered and gradually woke up. Then, he made many preparations. He used the many corpses of the real dragons in the Dragon Palace, and even the extraterrestrial demon's flesh and blood essence and spiritual energy to heal his primordial spirit. He even used his doppelgangers to build an altar in the sea and lure many experts into the Dragon Palace. This time because his primordial spirit had recovered to a certain extent and Ziyue was about to take away the real dragon's corpses, he could not help but make his move. However, the power of this attack is really terrifying. Ziyue's mind was clear, but in the face of the soul-devouring demon supremacy's attack, he was still incomparably shocked. In addition, he could not move the real dragon's corpses for a while. Therefore, with a thought, whoosh, whoosh, a huge pagoda quickly appeared on his body. It was the Kunwa Golden Pagoda that he had obtained from the Dragon Palace. The Kunwa Golden Pagoda was a true numinous treasure. After countless years, its grade was extremely high. Not only could it be used to train the strength of cultivators, but it also had a cultivation room of laws. It could also be used to defend and attack with the help of the numinous treasure itself. It was extremely useful. At this moment, under the threat of danger, Ziyue directly activated the Kunwa Golden Pagoda. Boom! It directly blocked the attack. Chapter 767. The Kunwa Golden Pagoda was definitely superior to the demonic treasure saber in terms of grade. Although it was not an offensive treasure like the demonic treasure saber, its material and the weapon spirit's enhancement to the spiritual treasure allowed it to unleash an unimaginable effect. At this moment, the soul-devouring demon Venerable was activating the demonic treasure saber with all his might. A terrifying power erupted, and it was indeed extremely powerful. It had already surpassed the level of a late-stage primordial spirit realm expert and was comparable to a full-force attack from a peak primordial spirit realm expert. However, such a terrifying attack was unable to move by Ziyue at all. Almost 90% of the power was blocked by the Kunwa Golden Pagoda, and the remaining 10% of the penetrative power hit by Ziyue's 5 Divine Emperor's Robe. It only made it shake slightly before it was completely gone. He blocked it. This attack was comparable to a full-force attack from a peak primordial spirit realm expert. In terms of power, no one here could block it. Even a peak primordial spirit realm expert would not dare to take it head-on. But this saber strike had been blocked by Taoist Dark North? What kind of treasure is that golden pagoda? Spiritual treasure. This is a spiritual treasure. If I'm not wrong, it's very likely to be the 9-dragon golden pagoda in the Dragon Emperor Palace. What? Spiritual treasure? 9-dragon golden pagoda? As far as I know, apart from the 3 treasures of the Dragon Clan in the outside world, there are actually 2 spiritual treasures that are known to the outside world. They have always been suppressed in the Dragon Emperor Palace. One of them is the Memory Inheritance Hall, which is the most precious inheritance treasure of the Dragon Clan. The other one is the 9-dragon golden pagoda. It is said that the 9-dragon golden pagoda can not only judge a cultivator's growth potential through trials, but there is also a law cultivation room that can guide a cultivator to a higher level. It is said that with the help of the law cultivation room, a peak primordial spirit realm expert's chances of becoming an immortal Tao expert will increase by more than 30%. Now that the 9-dragon golden pagoda is in the hands of Taoist Northming, the Memory Inheritance Hall might also be. Seeing this, the group of cultivators was shocked. They were all extremely shocked. A spiritual treasure, a true spiritual treasure, and a legendary treasure that belonged to the Dragon Palace. Now, it was in the hands of Taoist Northming. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes became wild and fervent. At this moment, the corpse of the extraterrestrial demon on the ground, which was worth as much as a spirit treasure, suddenly lost its fragrance. Fu Yunfan, the primordial spirit realm expert, Wan Zhongyun, Hua Dingshan, and many other primordial spirit realm experts could not help but become restless and restless. Dying. Even though the soul-devouring demon Exalted's consciousness had been taken away, the failure of his attack had made him even more furious. The blood-red light in his eyes shone brightly as he raised his demonic treasure, saber once again. A mighty saber ray swept out rapidly. Boom! Boom! After the first saber strike, another saber strike followed. It was as if the saber strike was going to split the entire world apart. His above was of the spiritual realm. Of the spiritual. Baiziwa didn't care about the consumption, and his soul power spread out crazily. Finally, the moment he enveloped the true dragon's corpse with his divine sense. Chi! A unique sound was heard. Immediately after, the huge corpse of the spiritual realm disappeared. Although it had been dead for tens of thousands of years, there was still a thick Tao accumulation of the spiritual realm. He kept it in the northern underworld grotto heaven. Finally, the corpse of the spiritual realm has been kept in the grotto heaven. Baiziu's mind relaxed, and he immediately felt elated. The corpse of the spiritual realm was extremely valuable. Just the Tao accumulation of the spiritual realm on its body was enough to make countless primordial spirit realm cultivators go crazy. They could comprehend many mysterious Tao laws from it and learn some of its inheritance. Not to mention the scales, horns, whiskers, flesh, bones, tendons, and even the blood of the spiritual realm had all been crystallized. Any cultivator who obtained it would have a certain chance of obtaining the bloodline of the spiritual realm, greatly increasing their strength. In his opinion, such a treasure was no less valuable than a spiritual treasure. In fact, in his opinion, it was even more valuable than the demonic treasure saber of the spiritual realm. Then he looked at the spiritual realm above the spiritual realm of 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 the spiritual realm. Did you have a good fight? It's my turn now, right? Zus sneered. The Jindan essence in his body surged wildly and swept out. Buzz! A Tao technique seed spun slightly, and then a terrifying energy condensed along his palm. Then he waved it gently. Boom! The void froze. It was as if the mysterious light of the 9 heavens had descended upon the mortal realm. It turned into a dazzling Milky Way light that penetrated the heavens and the earth. Tao technique, primordial magnet, divine light. Kill. The spiritual realm of the spiritual realm roared. The demonic treasure saber turned into a waterfall and slashed at the primordial magnet divine light that was charging towards him. Rumble. The two terrifying attacks that were comparable to the full power attack of a peak primordial spirit realm expert collided. Immediately, the heavens and the earth rumbled. The spatial barrier was easily torn apart, and a huge hole was created. Through the hole, one could see the endless starry sky outside the star realm. Below the ground, although it was only the aftermath of the collision, the ground that had been destroyed by the ancient battle collapsed again. A large area was turned into ashes and was annihilated. Rumble. The demonic treasure saber vibrated. Endless demonic aura surged out. The saber radiance that was formed was extremely sharp. Boom. It slashed Zue's primordial magnet divine light, and it dissipated. After all, the demonic treasure saber was a demonic treasure that was comparable to a spiritual treasure. Its power was terrifying, and it greatly increased the strength of the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm. Seeing this, Zue's expression did not change. With a thought, the flying sword that was protecting him suddenly let out a sword hum. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 9 sword radiances were quickly formed. The 9 sword radiances were like 9 sword pillars that pierced through the heavens and the earth. As they pierced through, they merged with the laws of the universe and formed a sword realm. Within the sword realm, everything was naturally under his control. Now, the spiritual realm of the universe had enveloped the spiritual realm of the universe. This was the 9 extinction divine sword that he had raised to the perfection level. As his understanding of the laws of the universe deepened, in addition to the fact that he had already raised this Tao technique to the perfection level, the 9 extinction divine sword was instantly filled with endless changes when it was used. Not only could it attack, defend, and trap the enemy as he wished, but its power would also not be weakened. Boom, boom, boom. Inside the sword realm, the spiritual realm of the universe instinctively felt a great threat. He immediately attacked frantically and slashed at the sword radiances with all his might. Boom, boom. However, compared to Zue's primordial magnet divine light, the power of Zue's 9 extinction divine sword was even more shocking because it was supported by the northern sea flying sword. In addition, it was stabilized by the laws of the universe. No matter how he attacked, he cannot break free. Then, the sword radiances rotated. Like 9 interconnected millstones, they slammed down fiercely. Chi! Chi! Under the terrifying power, the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the universe was swept away. Then, the sword radiances pierced into his body. Ah! A loud roar filled with despair was heard. At the moment of his death, the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the universe finally broke free from the invasion of the demonic chi and regained consciousness. However, it was still too late. The moment he regained consciousness, the sword radiances had already pierced through him. His primordial spirit was also pierced by the sword chi. It was completely shattered and turned into ashes. So easy? Zue was a little puzzled after killing the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the universe with a single strike. Although the reason for all this was because his attack was too terrifying, the primordial magnet divine sword had already been raised to the perfection level of the spiritual realm of the universe. Regardless of whether it was the 9 extinction divine sword or the primordial magnetic divine light, they were both Tao techniques that had been raised to the level of perfection by him. Under full power, their power had already reached the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm. Even if the soul-devouring demon supremacy had the support of a demonic treasure, it would still be difficult for him to resist. However, Zue was very sure that the extraterritorial demon was the one who stole the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the spiritual realm of the universe. Because of this, his opponent had even exposed the extraordinariness of the demonic treasure saber. Being able to kill the soul-devouring demon exalted so easily made him feel that something was amiss. Because of that, Ziyue did not lower his guard because of the soul-devouring demon exalted. Instead, he became even more cautious. The 9 rays of sword light did not disperse after the death of the soul-devouring demon exalted. Instead, they transformed into a millstone and swept toward the demonic saber. He planned to use the attack to obliterate the intelligence of the weapon spirit within the demonic saber. He did not even hesitate to obliterate its spirituality. Bang! 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 Intense sounds of swords clashing could be heard. Without a source of energy, the demonic treasure saber was completely powerless against Ziyue's endless flying swords. The thick, murderous aura that had been wrapped around the demonic treasure war saber seemed to have dissipated with Ziyue's attack. I didn't expect a little child to be so careful. Just as Ziyue's attack swept toward the demonic treasure war saber, a voice suddenly sounded. Then, the demonic treasure war saber hummed and let out a loud, trembling sound. Then, a terrifying, murderous aura erupted from it. Boom! The demonic treasure war saber was suddenly pulled out. Rays of saber light that were even more terrifying and mysterious than when the soul-devouring demon exalted had used it previously swept out. The rays of saber light seemed light, but they were extremely fast. When they collided with Ziyue's sword light, they produced clanging sounds. After which, Bai Ziyue saw that behind the demonic treasure war blade, an illusory figure that was almost transparent but had a special dim light. It seemed to be a little weak but contained an endless amount of frightening power, suddenly appeared. It was a soul projection that was almost identical to the extraterritorial demon in the distance. However, its appearance was a little illusory. Although it was not as large as the extraterritorial demon's body, its appearance was clear to almost anyone who saw it that it was the extraterritorial demon's soul. The Primordial Spirit War Saber. This is the Primordial Spirit War Saber. The primordial spirit of the extraterritorial demon has indeed been in the demonic treasure war saber all along. Bai Ziyue's heart trembled, and his expression instantly turned extremely solemn. If it was only the soul-devouring demon exalted from before, even if the soul-devouring demon exalted was holding a demonic treasure, he would not be afraid at all. However, the primordial spirit that was controlling the demonic treasure war saber now seemed to be very weak. However, Ziyue seemed to be facing a great enemy and was extremely vigilant. This was because he knew very well that this primordial spirit was the terrifying existence that had already reached the separating God realm tens of thousands of years ago. Even in the ancient war, the extraterritorial demon exalted had suffered unimaginable injuries and had not fully recovered until now. However, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. No matter how weak the extraterritorial demon exalted was, the power that it could display when controlling the demonic treasure war saber would definitely surpass that of an expert at the peak of the primordial spirit realm. Boom, boom, boom. The saber light swept out and collided with Ziyue's sword light. The terrifying power continued to penetrate through. Oh no! Ziyue's expression changed. He hurriedly controlled the flying sword to turn and flew back. He was no match for it. Not only was the power of his flying sword no match for the sharpness of the extraterritorial demon exalted saber light, there was a special and strange power that kept invading his flying sword, causing his control of the flying sword to become somewhat stagnant. Ziyue knew that it was the invasion of the demonic power in the extraterritorial demon exalted saber light that affected the spirituality of the flying sword. No matter what, the demonic treasure war saber was of a much higher grade than his flying sword. In addition, under the control of the extraterritorial demon exalted, the power of the demonic treasure war saber could be perfectly unleashed. Naturally, its power was terrifying and far surpassed that of when the soul-devouring demon exalted was controlling it previously. Die! The extraterritorial demon Exalted's primordial spirit was illusory, and his eyes were extremely cold. He controlled the war saber and attacked wildly. Boom, boom, boom. The war saber slashed out one after another. The saber light was vast, and it cut through the void. Rip! The space membrane was easily cut open, causing a black crack to appear in the void. It was easy and natural. The space membrane that was cut open this time was much stronger than when the soul-devouring demon Exalted had barely cut open the space membrane. First-class primordial spirit realm. Every slash is at least equivalent to the full force attack of a first-class primordial spirit realm expert. Ziyue's expression changed, and he retreated frantically. He could not care less about the depletion of his Jindan essence. Beams of dazzling divine light were shot out from his body. However, the saber light was too fast. It seemed to ignore the distance between them and the extraterritorial demon Exalted. In an instant, it was right in front of Ziyue. Fortunately, he had long been wary of the extraterritorial demon Exalted. He maintained the Kunwu Golden Pagoda in front of him. Hence, boom, boom, boom. After the saber light easily shattered Ziyue's metamagnet divine light, they all slammed into the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Ziyue was pushed back by the terrifying attacks. However, he could feel that the attacks were not too strong. The defensive power of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda was too strong. Even an ultimate primordial spirit realm expert would not be able to break through its material. Perhaps only an immortal Dao expert at the spirit severing stage will be able to use supreme techniques to break through it. Therefore, even though Ziyue was at an absolute disadvantage and the extraterritorial demon Exalted's attack was extremely terrifying, almost 90% of its power was blocked by the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. The remaining 10% was unable to break through Ziyue's 5 Emperor Imperial Robe that could withstand the full force attack of a late primordial spirit realm expert. Chapter 768. It's true. Everything Taoist Dark North had said earlier was true. The extraterrestrial demon is actually still alive, and it has been hiding in the demonic saber all this time. Fu Yunfan, Demon King Tsanggu, and the others in the distance were shocked when they saw this. They even felt a chill in their hearts. The extraterrestrial demon was still alive, and its strength had already reached the spirit-severing stage tens of thousands of years ago. Even in the ancient war, it had already been severely injured, and its primordial spirit was now weak, with less than 10% of its strength left. But even in such a state, the power that the extraterrestrial demon could unleash was terrifying, far more powerful than theirs. It had reached the peak of the primordial spirit realm. Ziyue had the protection of his numinous treasure and was naturally resistant to such a terrifying power. If they had encountered it, their defenses would have been broken in an instant, and they would have been killed. Ziyue had blocked many of the extraterrestrial demon's attacks with the protection of his numinous treasure. But he did feel the pressure. The extraterrestrial demon's attack speed was too fast, and the power of its attacks was also terrifying, almost completely suppressing him. Fortunately, although the extraterrestrial demon's attack power is strong, it has not reached the limit of what I can withstand. With the defensive power of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, only the attack power of an extreme realm expert can pose a threat to me, right? Bai Ziyue continued to retreat as he heaved a sigh of relief. With the upgrade of his attribute panel, his greatest confidence was the Kunwu Golden Pagoda that he had just refined, and the defensive power of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda did not disappoint him. Even if 10% of its power would still pass through the numinous treasure and land on his body, his own defensive means were not weak, and it would not be a big problem for a short period of time. As for the power of an extreme realm attack, he had not really experienced it, but he knew that it would definitely be far more powerful than the peak of the primordial spirit realm. He silently estimated and knew that it would be very difficult for him to withstand it. Of course, if it was an immortal severing stage expert who attacked, he knew that he would definitely not be able to withstand it, and would be instantly killed, annihilated, and disappear. Even a casual attack from the other party could pass through an unknown trajectory and land on his body. Even a numinous treasure would find it difficult to block it. However, even though the spiritual treasure is strong, it also consumes a terrifying amount of Jindan energy. If it weren't for the grade 4 spirit vein in my northern underworld cave and my special cultivation technique, which allows me to convert spiritual energy at an astonishing speed, I wouldn't have been able to hold on. Ziyue was also aware that his core essence energy was not limitless after the upgrade of his attribute panel. Because of this, while maintaining the defense of his spiritual treasure, he also tried his best to reduce the number of attacks. His expression was calm as he silently waited for an opportunity. He knew that even if the extraterrestrial demon was powerful and had terrifying strength, it would still be under a lot of pressure if it used the demonic treasure saber for a long time. Otherwise, with such a powerful attack, he could have wiped out all the practitioners who stepped into the Dragon Emperor Palace and absorbed a large amount of flesh and blood essence to recover his strength. Why would he wait until now to attack? Because of Ziyue's accident. Damn it, I didn't expect this numinous treasure to fall into the hands of this human clan boy. The primordial spirit of the extraterrestrial demon showed obvious anger and a trace of anxiety. In the battle 30,000 years ago, he had suffered too much damage. Even though he looked fierce now, it was not easy for his primordial spirit to recover from the injury. The power he could exert now was limited, less than 1/10 of his peak power. After attacking for a long time without success, he immediately realized that it was impossible to hurt the human clan practitioner in the numinous treasure with the strength of his attack. The only way was to use the primordial spirit to attack or increase the strength of his attack to another level. However, his primordial spirit was already severely injured. If he rashly launched a primordial spirit attack, it might cause his primordial spirit to be injured again and fall into a deep sleep. Therefore, he would not use the primordial spirit attack unless it was absolutely necessary. As for increasing the strength of his attack to another level, then I can only use the strength of my body. The extraterrestrial demon thought. He knew that it was impossible to exert his strongest battle strength by relying on the primordial spirit to control the saber, so he immediately focused on his body. In order to recover his physical body and vitality, he had been scheming for the past 30,000 years. Now, although he had not fully recovered, he had at least recovered 30% of his physical body. It was enough for him to exert extraordinary battle strength. Thinking of this, he hurriedly controlled the saber and quickly rushed toward the extraterrestrial demon's corpse. Now is the time. Ziyue had been waiting for an opportunity. He knew that the extraterrestrial demon would use another method if he could not defeat him after attacking for a long time. At this moment, when he sensed that the extraterrestrial demon had the intention to retreat, he became excited. Without any hesitation, the primordial spirit in his body surged into the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Buzz! The Kunwu Golden Pagoda trembled slightly. Boom! A terrifying golden light instantly rushed out from the top of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. As it swept out, it seemed to be able to shatter the entire world. Pieces of space were shattered and turned into nothingness. The golden light seemed to be able to annihilate everything. Its speed was extremely fast, and it directly rushed in front of the extraterrestrial demon's primordial spirit. At this moment, Ziyue had used all the primordial spirit in his body to drive the Kunwu Golden Pagoda to unleash a terrifying attack. Although this attack was only 30% of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda's full power, it had reached the level of the Supreme Realm. It was extremely terrifying and had exceeded the limits of countless people's imagination. Oh no! The extraterrestrial demon's expression changed drastically. This attack was too powerful. It had reached the level of the supreme, primordial spirit. Although it was still far from the extraterrestrial demon's peak battle strength, it should not forget that he was currently heavily injured. Furthermore, he was using his primordial spirit to control the saber. He did not have any physical defense outside his body, let alone any magic treasures to protect him. In the face of this attack, even the extraterrestrial demon felt a sense of panic. He could not care about anything else. With a ferocious look on his face, he channeled almost half of his primordial spirit into the demonic saber. Then, with a wave, the saber swept across the sky and slashed out. This attack was also the extraterrestrial demon's full power. It contained boundless mysteries of the Tao and was extremely taxing on his primordial spirit. If he was not careful, his injuries would worsen and he would need to spend hundreds of years to recover. If not for the fact that Ziyue's attack came so suddenly and was extremely powerful, he would not have been willing to use this attack. Boom, boom, boom. The saber and the golden light collided, creating a deafening sound. Boom! Suddenly, the demonic saber, North Sea, was sent flying. Although the extraterrestrial demon's attack was terrifying and had also reached the level of the supreme primordial spirit, the Kunwa Golden Pagoda's attack contained mysterious powers and mysteries of the Tao. It was obviously much stronger and was able to crush the extraterrestrial demon. However, on second thought, this was normal. The Kunwa Golden Pagoda was a numinous treasure that was refined by a spirit-severing stage expert. Be it in terms of grade or level of power, it was far superior to the extraterrestrial demon. At the same level of the supreme primordial spirit, it was naturally able to crush the extraterrestrial demon. At this moment, although the golden light had been worn down by the saber and had become much dimmer, it still had energy left and charged towards the primordial spirit of the extraterrestrial demon. Damn it, I didn't expect that human kid to be able to unleash such a terrifying attack. The extraterrestrial demon's face changed drastically. His primordial spirit moved and ignored the demonic saber. In a flash, he rushed towards his main body. Chi! In just an instant, he entered the extraterrestrial demon's main body. With the help of the extraterrestrial demon's main body's terrifying defensive power, he finally managed to block the golden light that had been weakened significantly. Indeed, without the interference of his physical body, his primordial spirit is really too fast. This extraterrestrial demon's mastery of the rules of heaven and earth is extremely high. His flying speed is even faster than my golden light attack. Ziyue looked at the speed of the extraterrestrial demon's primordial spirit from afar and was shocked. At the same time, his body moved quickly and rushed in front of the demonic saber. Without hesitation, he reached out and grabbed it. Buzz! In an instant, a terrifying demonic power surged out and attacked Ziyue's soul. However, the demonic saber was not possessed by the extraterrestrial demon's primordial spirit, so the impact of the demonic power was greatly reduced. Ziyue's perfect soul was enough to resist the invasion of the demonic power. Therefore, he only looked serious for a moment before he completely grasped the demonic saber. Without hesitation, he flipped his hand and directly sent it into the northern underworld grotto heaven, separated by a grotto heaven world. Even though the extraterrestrial demon was still at the stage of recognizing the master of the demonic saber and had great control over it, it was almost impossible for him to use it against an enemy. Then, Ziyue rushed towards the extraterrestrial demon's main body like a shadow. At the same time, he madly operated the supreme primordial Tao skill. The endless spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the northern underworld grotto heaven quickly swept and surged into his body. Furthermore, he also took out many spiritual pills that contained a terrifying amount of pure energy and swallowed them all. With the two processes going on at the same time, the primordial Tao skill in his body quickly recovered. In a short time, it recovered from its original lack of energy to its peak. Die. All of you must die. All of you must die. It was also at this moment that a loud roar reverberated in all directions. Then, the corpse of the extraterrestrial demon, which was originally lifeless, instantly regained its vitality and began to move. It quickly climbed up. Rumble. The earth rumbled. Every move of the colossal creature, which was more than 1,000 feet tall, contained terrifying power. It opened its eyes, which were filled with bloodlust and madness. Then, it took a step forward and stretched out its claws. No, an early primordial soul realm sea demon did not even have time to react before it was caught by the extraterrestrial demon. Then with a squeeze of its hand, blood spurted out. Even the primordial Tao skill of the sea demon did not have time to escape before it died. However, the extraterrestrial demon was not surprised at all. It directly stuffed the blood and flesh into its mouth and began to chew. As the blood and flesh of the sea demon entered its mouth, the aura of the extraterrestrial demon seemed to strengthen slightly. The murderous aura on its body also increased greatly. Quick run! The many cultivators who had not recovered from the extraterrestrial demon's primordial Tao skill all changed their expressions when they saw this shocking change. All of them frantically rushed in all directions. Run? Do you think you can escape? The extraterrestrial demon laughed coldly, and its body moved again. Boom! Its huge body was extremely agile, and its speed was extremely fast. Soon, it came to the side of the human cultivator, Wan Zhongyun. With a curl of its tongue, it directly wrapped Wan Zhongyun up and swallowed him. No! Senior Fu, save me. Wan Zhongyun's expression changed greatly. He controlled his flying sword to attack wildly and struggled with all his might. However, the extraterrestrial demon's level of power was too high. Even though its physical injuries had only recovered to 30% of its peak state, it was still extremely terrifying. His attacks only tore apart a piece of the extraterrestrial demon's flesh and could not help him escape at all. And that piece of flesh, compared to the extraterrestrial demon's huge body, was not even an inch. It was not a threat at all. When Fu Yunfan saw this from afar, his expression was extremely ugly. However, he had no intention of paying attention to it at all. He fled into the distance at an even faster speed. Even if a mighty spirit-severing stage cultivator who had existed for 30,000 years was severely injured, the power that he could unleash was beyond his imagination. He could not even take care of himself. How could he care about anything else? Therefore, very quickly, Wan Zhongyun could only let out a cry of despair before he was completely swallowed. Then, he turned into nourishment for the extraterrestrial demon, healing its injuries and increasing its chi and blood power. Let's join forces and attack together. Otherwise, no one can escape death. A cultivator shouted loudly, wanting to gather many experts to deal with the extraterrestrial demon together. However, in the midst of the chaos, no one responded at all. Instead, his loud shout attracted the attention of the extraterrestrial demon. It turned around and quickly rushed in front of him. It stretched out its claws as if it could seize the world, causing the world within a radius of several hundred feet around the cultivator to freeze, making him unable to move at all. Then, the cultivator was crushed to death by the extraterrestrial demon and was swallowed into its stomach again. Just like how Ziwei used the spiritual pills and the spiritual meridians in the northern underworld grotto heaven to recover his Jindan essence, the extraterrestrial demon attacked crazily in order to recover its own vitality. In its eyes, other people were not important at all. Its real enemy was the human boy, Ziwei, who had a spiritual treasure and could unleash an attack comparable to that of an expert of the supreme realm. Therefore, it attacked crazily. In a short period of time, it had killed several experts and swallowed them wantonly. Kill! Bai Ziwei quickly moved closer and made his move without hesitation. He knew that as time passed, the more experts the extraterrestrial demon killed and devoured, the faster and stronger the extraterrestrial demon's strength would recover. Naturally, he had to stop it as soon as possible. At this moment, Ziwei's battle strength was fully unleashed. He used the heaven patching technique and the great path dharma form, raising his strength to the extreme. Every move he made contained great power. His aura was even more powerful and terrifying, as if a god had descended to the world. Then he unleashed a series of perfect binding abilities, as well as the 9 Extinction Divine Sword and the Metamagnetic Divine Light. Chapter 769. The Grand Taboo, Spiritual Technique, the 5 Emperors' Heaven-Sealing Sword, the Heaven and Earth Sleeve. All sorts of techniques were used at the same time. It was like an inescapable net that enveloped the extraterrestrial demon. Then, Ziyue used his innate ability, absent-mindedness. He knew that the extraterrestrial demon's primordial spirit must have been severely injured. This could be seen from the fact that his primordial spirit was illusory and seemed to have gathered at the last minute and could shatter at any time. Therefore, even though his soul power was extremely weak compared to the extraterrestrial demon, he still used the only soul attack that he knew. Finally, he used the 9 extinction divine sword and the primordial magnetic divine light. Chi. Great divine powers surged rapidly and enveloped the extraterrestrial demon. The first to land on his opponent was the Grand Taboo spiritual technique. However, the sealing power of the Great Forbidden Spirit Art might be extremely effective against ordinary primordial soul realm experts, but against the massive size of the extraterrestrial demon, coupled with its terrifying strength, it did not have much of an effect. The extraterrestrial demon did not stop and broke through the sealing power. Then, he reached out and hammered the sword wall of the 5 Emperor's Heaven Sealing Sword. Terrifying power exploded. The sword wall seemed to be unable to withstand such a terrifying attack, and quickly dimmed before shattering. You have many tricks up your sleeve. The extraterritorial demon had just shattered the sword wall of the 5 Emperor's Heaven Sealing Sword when he looked up and saw a huge black screen enveloping him. His expression did not change. He extended his claws, which were so sharp that they seemed to be able to tear the world apart, and clawed fiercely. Chi. The heaven and earth within Sleeve's technique was instantly torn apart. The physical strength of the extraterrestrial demon was too strong and terrifying. Even though he only had 30% of his full strength, his every move contained great power that could pierce through space and was comparable to the full strength attack of a peak primordial spirit realm expert. However, just as he was about to move forward and attack Ziyue, a misty light shrouded him. Without a sound, it invaded his body and attacked his primordial spirit. A loud howl of agony quickly sounded from his mouth. The extraterrestrial demon, who was originally full of vigor, suddenly paused and fell into great pain. As expected, his primordial spirit is his greatest weakness. Even if the strength of my soul attack is not strong enough, and even a mid-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator would be able to withstand it, the damage it caused to him is extremely great. Ziyue's eyes lit up. The primordial magnetic divine light transformed into a streak of light that swept across the area. The sword light formed by the 9 extinction divine sword followed closely behind and ruthlessly slashed out. Chi. Even though the extraterrestrial demon had a strong physical body and strong defensive power, the power of Ziyue's magnetic divine light was also very terrifying. In a flash, a large piece of flesh on the extraterrestrial demon's body was destroyed by the magnetic force and turned into ashes, revealing its white bones. Immediately after, the 9 extinction divine sword slashed past, following the opponent's white bones, penetrating deep into the opponent's flesh and organs. As the sword chi rampaged, it wantonly destroyed, obliterating the opponent's vitality that had just recovered. Chi. Immediately, his control over his physical body was reduced from 30% to 20%. Damn it! The extraterrestrial demon had just recovered from the primordial spirit attack, and his expression changed drastically. Previously, Ziyue had used the position of the spiritual treasure to seize his demonic treasure saber, which had already shocked him and made him even more furious. However, now that his opponent had used his soul attack to inflict serious injuries on him, he could not help but be shocked. This was because he knew very well that his primordial spirit was his foundation. Even though his opponent's soul attack did not cause as much damage to his primordial spirit as he had imagined, he was still a mighty spirit-severing stage cultivator. His primordial spirit was many times more powerful than a primordial spirit realm cultivator. However, in the ancient battle, he had been severely injured. His opponent's soul attack had triggered his old injuries, causing his primordial spirit to tremble and be in great pain. Therefore, even he had to admit that Ziyue's attack was already a threat to him. if his opponent used the spiritual treasure to attack. Just as he was thinking this, he saw that the huge golden pagoda above Ziyue's head shone brightly with golden light. Then, a beam of golden light immediately gathered. Roar! The extraterrestrial demon's heart palpitated, and he suddenly let out a roar. This roar contained a special wave of spiritual energy, and it was also mixed with traces of a primordial spirit attack. It was silent, but it was extremely fast. Ziyue saw his opponent's attack. As he had received the inheritance of 3 spirit severing stage cultivators, he could sense the mysteries of his opponent's attack. It was a special technique that used a small amount of primordial spirit power to supplement the laws of heaven and earth and the mysteries of sound. Although it was not a true primordial spirit attack, it almost had the same effect as a primordial spirit attack. His heart skipped a beat, and he did not dare to be careless. With a thought, the great spirit golden thread in his soul was immediately controlled by him, turning into a special golden thread power that enveloped his entire soul. Even his physical body was enveloped by it. It was also at this moment that his perception increased greatly. The heavens and earth were clear, and everything in the world seemed to contain endless mysteries amidst the silence. Tom also seemed to have stopped. He could clearly feel the blood flowing in his body, the beating of his heart, the trembling of his internal organs. Every bone, every muscle fiber, and the sound and rhythm of the Jindan essence in his body. He was almost addicted to this kind of control. Then, the sound wave attack swept over. The Kunwa Golden Pagoda, outside Ziyue's body, was almost unable to block it at all. The sound wave descended, landed on his body, and rushed into his soul. Buzz! As the sound wave entered, Ziyue's flesh and soul trembled, as if they were about to be destroyed. This sound contained a sense of resonance and disturbance, causing Ziyue's mind to tremble. But at the same time, he also relaxed, as if to welcome the sound wave and let it enter the depths of his soul. However, as Ziyue's great spirit golden thread circulated, it formed a natural defensive membrane, blocking all kinds of sound wave attacks outside. In addition, his soul was complete after all, so naturally there was not a trace of weakness. Therefore, his expression only froze for a moment, and he quickly recovered, blocking this sound wave attack. Fortunately, I have the great spirit golden thread. Otherwise, with the strength of my soul, it would be really difficult to block this sound wave attack. Ziyue secretly sighed in relief. The great spirit golden thread was a special kind of soul power, and it was very useful. Although it could not increase his strength, it had a supplementary effect, especially in the aspect of his soul. In his opinion, it was not inferior to the heaven patching technique and the great Tao manifestation. The only thing that made him feel a little regretful was that the number of great spirit golden threads was still too little, and it was many times more difficult to recover than soul power, especially in the situation where he could not use the attribute panel to upgrade. Once he used it up, he would need at least an entire day's worth of savings to be able to fully recover. After a series of attacks, in addition to blocking the sound wave attack, there were only 30% of the total number of great spirit golden threads left in his body. 30% is only enough for me to block another sound wave attack from the extraterritorial demon, or to use another gifted divine ability. Ziyue's heart was in a hurry, and he just happened to see the extraterritorial demon open his palm, using his hand as a knife, forming an extremely mysterious knife light. The knife light was vast and mighty, as if it could cut through heaven and earth, and it was quickly slashed out. Rumble! What a fast and powerful knife light! Ziyue looked up, desperately trying to dodge, but he found that the surrounding heaven and earth seemed to be locked, and he could not move at all. He had no choice but to hide in the spiritual treasure with the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, and use all his strength to maintain the perfect 5 Emperor God royal robe, as well as a middle-grade primordial spirit defensive treasure in front of him. Dong! With a loud bang, the knife light slashed on the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, causing the pagoda to shake violently, and it quickly flew out. However, The Kunwa Golden Pagoda was after all a top spiritual treasure, and its defensive power was really terrifying. Even though the power of the extraterrestrial demon's attack had reached the supreme state, it did not leave a single mark on the Golden Pagoda. 90% of the power of the extraterrestrial demon's attack had dissipated due to the defense of the spiritual treasure. The remaining 10% of the power was injected into the spiritual treasure, and it evolved into a white knife light, which seemed to have the ability to track. With a slight flash, it rushed in front of Ziyue and slashed out fiercely. Puff! The middle-grade primordial spirit defensive treasure was cut in half the moment it collided with the knife light. Then, the remaining power of the knife light did not decrease, and it fell on the 5 Emperor God Royal Robe. Chi! Even if the 5 Emperor God Royal Robe's defense was unparalleled, the attack power of the knife light was strange and tyrannical, and contained a special Tao law, which was more mysterious than the 5 Emperor God Royal Robe. Therefore, even if the actual strength of the knife light was not stronger than the 5 Emperor God Royal Robe, it still followed the loophole and shattered the 5 Emperor God Royal Robe. Then, the knife light slashed on Ziyue's body. "I'm injured." Ziyue looked at the wound on his shoulder, which had split open, and a trace of dark red blood flowed out. He still had a lingering fear. Fortunately, after layers of weakening, the power of the extraterritorial demon's attack had been weakened to the extreme. Although the knife light was fierce and contained a trace of strange power, it was wantonly destroying his physical body, but it was not fatal. He blocked it again? Damn it! If it weren't for his previous attack that knocked my saber down and wiped out 10% of my vitality, I would have definitely killed him. When the extraterritorial demon saw the result of the attack, its heart was extremely gloomy. In terms of the difficulty of this battle, although it was far less difficult than when it invaded the Dragon Palace and fought with the real dragon expert of the spirit-severing realm, it was more of a headache. The defense of the Golden Pagoda was too strong. It estimated that even when it was at its peak, it would be extremely difficult to break it. Not to mention now. Of course, if the demonic treasure saber was still in its hand, with the mysterious and terrifying power of the spirit treasure saber, it was confident that even if it could not break the defense of the spirit treasure, the knife light attack that penetrated it would be able to kill the human cultivator. At most, the other party was only at the peak of the Golden Core realm. No matter how strange and powerful it was, how could it withstand the attack of the extreme realm and the mysterious dimensional reduction of the spirit-severing realm? However, there were no ifs in reality. Its attack, which was sure to succeed, ended up failing to accomplish anything. Dying. Although it was shocked, the extraterritorial demon did not hesitate and continued to attack. As an expert of the spirit-severing realm, it naturally could not tolerate being helpless against a cultivator who was only at the peak of the Golden Core realm. This would be its humiliation, and as an expert, it could not tolerate such humiliation. Not to mention, its demonic treasure saber was still in Ziyue's hands. Therefore, after a slight tremble, it attacked again. Its hands turned into sabers and slashed out terrifying saber lights. No, if this continues, I won't be able to withstand it at all. I can only go all out. Ziyue knew that whether it was in terms of speed or strength, he was far inferior to the extraterritorial demon. If this continued, even with the protection of the spirit treasure, he would definitely die. He couldn't even escape. Therefore, with a chill in his heart, he could no longer care about holding back. While continuing to use the 5 divine Emperor's robe and defensive Dharma treasures to resist the attack, a soul shadow appeared silently above his head. Without any hesitation, the remaining 30% of the Great Spirit Golden Silk gushed out. The soul shadow suddenly let out a soft cry, and immediately, a gray spiritual light rushed out quickly. It was he who had once again used his natural magical ability, absent-minded. Immediately after, Ziyue did not stop. He crazily circulated the Jindan essence in his body and poured it all into the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Buzz, buzz, buzz. With the help of the Kunwu artifact spirit, beams of bright golden light quickly gathered and then swept out. Chi! it quickly rushed toward the extraterritorial demon. At this moment, Ziyue went all out. He once again used the attack of the spirit treasure. The extraterritorial demon, who was crazily attacking, suddenly sensed Ziyue's soul attack. Its heart skipped a beat and was about to dodge. However, the soul attack was extremely fast, almost surpassing any attack. Before it could move, it had already entered and landed on its primordial spirit. Ziyue's absent-minded attack was not much of a threat to the spirit-severing stage primordial spirit of the extraterritorial demon. However, the old injury from the ancient battle was triggered by this soul attack. Instantly, the spirit-severing stage primordial spirit was in so much pain that it almost collapsed. A miserable shriek immediately came from its mouth. The sword light that had just been condensed could not hold on to its power under the intense pain and dissipated. Immediately after, the golden light descended and ruthlessly blasted its body. Rumble. The terrifying attack that was comparable to that of the Supreme Realm almost instantly shattered its fur, flesh, blood, meridians, bones, and internal organs, and turned them into ashes. The power of this attack had already reached the limit of the primordial spirit realm. Even though the extraterritorial demon's physical body was extraordinary, it had not really reached the spirit-severing stage. Naturally, it could not withstand this attack that was comparable to that of the Supreme Realm. However, the extraterritorial demon did not die directly. Chapter 770. After all, the extraterrestrial demon was an expert at the spirit-severing stage. At the critical moment, it maintained a trace of clarity. It actually used the primordial spirit saber technique to separate its head in advance and dodge. However, after losing its physical body and only having its head left, even an expert at the spirit-severing stage would find it difficult to exert much strength. Therefore, it did not stop. It opened its huge mouth and instantly spat out a ray of black light. Chi. The black light pierced through and hit the void. Immediately, it broke the space barrier, revealing a huge hole. On the other side of the hole was the spatial turbulence outside the astral realm. Then, it controlled its head without hesitation and rushed out of the hole. The huge hole also quickly stabilized and recovered as time passed. The hole also gradually shrank. Human brat, I'll remember you. Faintly, a slightly threatening voice could be heard coming from the hole. Oomph. In the end, it still escaped. Ziyue snorted. In fact, he was secretly relieved. It was not that he did not want to completely kill the extraterrestrial demon. Not to mention other things. If he could kill the extraterrestrial demon at the spirit-severing stage, the amount of spiritual energy that the extraterrestrial demon could provide him would be absolutely shocking. Even though the attribute panel was still in the process of upgrading, this did not mean that his spiritual energy could not increase. It was just that he could not see the exact amount in real time like before. However, in this battle, Ziyue had actually used all his strength. Not only was the primordial core energy exhausted, but even the great spirit golden thread in his soul was not left. Even though there was a continuous supply of spiritual energy in the northern underworld to help him recover the primordial core energy, he still did not have the confidence to continue tracking the extraterrestrial demon. After all, no matter what, the extraterrestrial demon was an expert at the spirit-severing stage. Even if it had suffered an unimaginable injury, it was difficult to guarantee that it still had some tricks up its sleeve. At least, the extraterrestrial demon's primordial spirit attack was definitely a huge threat to him. Naturally, he did not dare to take the risk rashly. If the attribute panel could still be used, with the continuous supply of primordial core energy in my body and the ability to turn back time on the attribute panel, it should not be difficult to completely kill the extraterrestrial demon. Ziyue felt a little regretful. However, he could only watch as the space membrane gradually recovered and the void returned to its original calm state. He won. Taoist Dark North had won. That extraterrestrial demon suffered heavy injuries and escaped. Otherworldly celestial fiends are no match for Taoist Dark North. The surrounding cultivators, who were originally thinking of fleeing in all directions, were all stunned. They stopped in a daze, and their faces were filled with astonishment. Previously, when the extraterrestrial demon had awakened and attacked the cultivators in a frenzy, they had clearly felt the other party's strength. Even though he had suffered an unimaginable injury in the battle at the ancient Dragon Palace, he was still able to unleash a battle prowess that was comparable to the peak of the primordial spirit realm. A full blow could even reach the level of the extreme realm. It was terrifying beyond compare and was enough to crush all of them. However, it was precisely such a terrifying existence that was no match for Taoist Dark North. It was beaten back, and its fleshly body was almost completely destroyed as it fled. Does this mean that Taoist Dark North's power has already reached the peak of the primordial spirit realm? Fu Yinfan, Monster King Tsanggu, and the others were all shocked. They stared at Ziyue's frail, yet imposing figure with mixed feelings of respect. Even though the reason why the other party was able to unleash such terrifying power was largely due to the fact that he possessed a numinous treasure. However, the other party's immortal techniques were only at the peak of the Golden Core realm after all. Even if the other party did not use his numinous treasure, they were not absolutely confident that they could defeat the other party. Although we have won this battle, this matter is not over yet. After all, the extraterrestrial demon has escaped. This is not a good thing for the entire astral realm. At this moment, Fairy Bai Chun, who had been hiding in the distance, approached with a trace of worry on her face. She continued, "Moreover, you have severely injured it this time and even snatched the demonic treasure from its hands. I reckon that it will not let this matter rest. After it recovers its strength, it will definitely do everything it can to seek revenge on you." "I know." Ziyue's expression turned solemn as he nodded. He knew very well how terrifying the extraterrestrial demon was. Even when it was severely injured, he had to unleash all his strength to resist it. Once it recovered, the terror of a spirit-severing stage mighty figure was definitely not something he could imagine. In his current state, he would definitely die. However, who knows what will happen in the future? Ziyue immediately shook his head and laughed. Although he could not determine how serious the other party's injuries were, it was not easy to recover from injuries to the primordial spirit. It would require too many precious treasures, not to mention that the other party's body had been destroyed and only its head had escaped. It would also require a huge price to recover. He estimated that the other party would need at least a few decades to recover to its peak. At that time, he estimated that his strength would definitely be incomparable to before. It would not be impossible for him to reach the spirit-severing stage. So, what did he have to be afraid of? "May I know if you're the legendary Taoist Northming?" After hesitating for a moment, Fu Yunfan carefully approached. He stopped when he was a few dozen feet away and asked from afar. As for Monster King Tsanggu and the other sea monster cultivators, they knew the grudge between them and the human race. Not only did they not dare to approach, they slowly retreated and soon disappeared among the halls of the Dragon Emperor Palace. "What can I do for you?" Ziyue raised his eyes slightly and looked at the other party. Previously in the sea, he had seen the other party follow Wang Xueji and Mo Fan to track him down. However, the other party did not really attack him, so he did not pursue the matter. "May I know if your golden pagoda is the 9 Dragons Golden Pagoda in the Dragon Emperor Palace?" Fu Yinfan asked immediately. Ziyue's eyes narrowed. "Don't misunderstand. I'm not interested in your spiritual treasure. I'm just curious. From what I know, it usually takes a lot of time to refine such a treasure. The only way you can control it so freely is if the treasure recognizes its master. I just want to confirm it." Fu Yinfan's heart tightened when he saw this. He hurriedly waved his hand. Even if he wanted to steal the treasure, he did not dare to steal it. The strength that Ziyue had displayed had completely intimidated him. He knew that unless it was a peak primordial soul realm expert or an undefeatable realm expert, it would be impossible to defeat the other party and steal the treasure. Furthermore, if the other party was really as he had guessed, and was a spirit treasure that the weapon spirit had automatically recognized and refined as its master, then that would mean that the other party's potential was astonishing. For such a super genius, regardless of whether it was the speed of growth or the height of his future growth, it was not something that he could estimate. It was very likely that the other party would reach the undefeatable realm or even the spirit-severing realm. He was not stupid to offend a future undefeatable realm expert or a spirit-severing realm expert. If it is really the Nine Dragons Golden Pagoda, I heard that there is a law cultivation room in the Nine Dragons Golden Pagoda. I am willing to use my lifetime inheritance in exchange for a chance to cultivate in your law cultivation room for a year. Of course, I will bear all the energy required to use the law cultivation room. Are you willing to accept? Fu Yinfan hurriedly said. He had been stuck in the advanced primordial spirit realm for hundreds of years and had not made any progress for a long time. He was even more eager to step into the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm and fight for that fleeting chance of becoming a dividing divinity cultivator. The law cultivation room could be said to be something he urgently needed. He was willing to pay any price for it. At this time, Fairy Bai Chun said, the reason why there are so many powerful inheritances in the Memory Inheritance Hall of the Dragon Palace is because the Dragon Clan used the law cultivation room to lure them. Even many undefeatable realm experts are willing to leave behind their inheritances. I see. Ziyue nodded silently. Previously, he had obtained the inheritance of the Heart Sword True Supremacy because the other party wanted to use the law cultivation room in the Dragon Palace. Because of this, he had a better understanding of the value of the law cultivation room. He had experienced it personally and indeed understood the wonderful use of it. This golden pagoda is called the Kunmu Golden Pagoda. There is indeed a law cultivation room in it. However, your inheritance... With that, Ziyue paused and slowly shook his head. With the inheritance of 3 spirit-severing realm experts in his hands, he was not interested in the other party's inheritance. However, Fu Yinfan was not someone who gave up easily. Although he was disappointed, he still shamelessly said, "Fellow cultivator, if you have any conditions, please state them. As long as I can enter the law cultivation room to cultivate, I am willing to pay any price." That's not impossible. Bai Ziyue pondered deeply for a moment when he heard this, and then he continued. I heard that fellow Taoist is guarding the ocean and cultivating by yourself without any attachments. I wonder if you can come to my North Nether sect and assume command for 100 years and become a law-imparting elder. Fellow cultivator, what do you mean? Fu Yinfan's heart skipped a beat. Then, without any hesitation, he said directly, I am willing. Greetings, sect master. He actually bowed directly. This was also a great blessing for him. After all, Ziyue's strength and potential were beyond his imagination. Now that he had heard that the other party had established a sect, if it developed, it might become one of the super immortal method forces in the future. If he could join in early, the benefits he would enjoy would definitely be great. Not to mention other things, just the law cultivation room alone was better than countless resources. If he became the law-imparting elder of the other party's sect, would it not mean that he would have the opportunity to enter the law cultivation room to cultivate at any time? All right. Ziyue nodded slightly and felt somewhat satisfied. He knew that if the North Nether sect wanted to establish itself and develop, it was not necessarily a good thing to stay in the North Nether Grotto Heaven. After all, the resources in the Grotto Heaven were limited, and it was impossible to rely on him to constantly replenish the resources. Therefore, after he became stronger and stronger, he finally began to consider choosing a spiritual land to be the mountain gate of the North Nether sect. Currently, the strongest in the North Nether sect was only at the intermediate Golden Elixir realm, and there were only 1 or 2 Golden Elixir realm cultivators. Compared to the many sects in the Immortal Method world, and even the many sects in the Cloud-Piercing Mountain range where resources were scarce, the North Nether sect was too weak. Furthermore, he could not always guard the mountain gate. It was also because of this that he was considering recruiting experts. Fu Yunfan's strength was not weak. and he was at the advanced primordial soul realm. In the entire immortal method world of the astral realm, he was considered an expert. If he were to guard the mountain gate, he would be able to block the spying of most experts. Immediately after, Ziyue gave a few instructions, and Fu Yunfan immediately went straight to the depths of the Dragon Palace, where the Memory Inheritance Hall was located. No one would not be interested in the inheritance of the Dragon Palace. Although Fu Yunfan's strength had reached the advanced primordial soul realm, there would be no surprises. Next, Dua looked at the battlefield and waved his hand, collecting the many spoils of war after the battle. In addition to some scattered Dharma treasures and storage bags, there was also some flesh that belonged to the extraterrestrial demon. In particular, one of the claws was not completely destroyed, perhaps because it was at the periphery of the attack of the numinous treasure and remained intact. Although the aura of the Taoist connotation was weak, it was also unusual. Ziyue naturally kept it and planned to carefully observe it when he had time. Perhaps he could gain something. Everything is done. For you, there is no danger in the Dragon Palace. Next, it should be time for you to fulfill your promise, right? Shatter my puppet core, and I will be free. At this moment, Fairy Bai Chun looked up at Ziyue calmly and said, Ziyue's heart skipped a beat as he saw the determination to die in her eyes. However, she had been of great help to him along the way. If she had not told him another way to enter the Dragon Palace, allowing him to obtain the 3 inheritances of the Memory Inheritance Hall in advance and obtain the numinous treasure Kunwu Golden Pagoda, his strength would have increased greatly. Otherwise, he would have definitely died if he faced the extraterrestrial demon in his previous state. Therefore, he really could not bear to attack Fairy Bai Chun, nor was he willing to do so. This was contrary to his original intention, and it would definitely leave a knot in his heart. After thinking about it, Ziyue said seriously, I understand your thoughts, Fairy. It is indeed too painful for a cultivator like you, who is determined to pursue the great Tao, to never be able to advance in the body of a puppet. However, you should understand the mysteries of the immortal spell world. Going against the heavens and turning the impossible into possible is what we immortal spell cultivators need to do. In your situation, it is not impossible for you to obtain a new creation in the future, transcend the restrictions again, evolve a physical body, and cultivate the great Tao again. Not to mention the inheritance of the Jade Lake immortal sect that you have always been thinking about. Wouldn't it be better if you could choose a suitable successor to inherit the great Tao yourself? You don't have to comfort me. My soul has been completely injected into the puppet core. Without a human form, I can't leave the puppet core at all, let alone the great Tao. Death was the best way to free oneself. I have long been fearless. Fairy Bai Chun was silent for a moment, but her face was still determined. I am not comforting you. Ziyue shook his head. Chapter 771. I'm not trying to comfort you. You should know that I've just received the inheritance of 3 spirit severing stage powerhouses. In the inheritance of the Thunder Sage, there's an extraordinary item called the Great Tao Golden Fruit. It can reconstruct one's soul and body. No matter what state one is in, as long as one retains consciousness, one can use the Great Tao Golden Fruit to recover. I think it's suitable for you to use. Moreover, in addition to the Great Tao Golden Fruit, the inheritance of the Dragon Emperor Ao Shui also mentioned that among the immortal Tao cultivators, there are powerhouses who have comprehended their own bodies and mastered enlightenment techniques. They can create things out of nothing and recreate the universe. To a true immortal Tao powerhouse, your problem is not a problem at all. If you trust me, I'll definitely help you recover your body within 100 years and embark on the path of cultivation again. Ziyue said with a serious face. This was also a promise from him. Whether it was the Great Tao Golden Fruit or comprehending one's own body in the future, mastering enlightenment techniques, creating things out of nothing, and recreating the universe. To most cultivators, it was an illusory and almost impossible thing. because those were treasures and methods that only those above the spirit-severing stage could come into contact with and understand. Ziyue was now only at the peak of the golden core stage. He was not even at the essence soul stage, let alone the spirit-severing stage. However, he had such confidence that he would definitely be able to do this within 100 years. The help that the stats panel could provide him was too great. He could break through realms that others would take hundreds or thousands of years to break through in the blink of an eye. Tao techniques that others would need to spend countless time and energy to cultivate. He could also do it in the blink of an eye. 100 years was too long for him, who was only half a century old. Even he himself did not know how much he would grow by then. Naturally, he had the confidence to find the great Tao golden fruit and master the technique of enlightening all things. Fairy by Chun fell silent. Along the way, she had already become numb to Ziyue's genius methods and all kinds of extraordinary things. If it was someone else, even if it was a supreme expert like the Heavenly Spirit sect master, she would not dare to believe that the other party could achieve the dividing divinity stage, head to the void turbulence to find the great Luo golden fruit, or comprehend the enlightenment technique to rebuild the universe. After all, in the immortal arts world, the spirit-severing stage was the spirit-severing stage. No matter how strong an essence spirit-severing stage expert was, if they did not reach the spirit-severing stage, they would still be a level below and could not be considered a mighty figure of the immortal Tao. Out of the 10 supreme realm experts of the current generation, it would be considered good if one of them could break through to the spirit-severing stage and become a mighty figure of the immortal Tao. But the person who said this was Ziyue. She had seen the other party's talent and strength clearly. Even if Zhang Xian did not reach the spirit-severing realm, he would still be able to wield strength comparable to a spirit-severing realm expert at the primordial spirit realm. She hesitated. A glimmer of hope, indeed, rose in his heart. All right, I believe you. Tens of thousands of years have passed, so I don't care about another 100 years. After a moment of silence, Fairy by Chen nodded. All right, don't worry. In my Dark North sect, as long as you like them, you can choose any 3 people to accept the inheritance of your Jade Lake Immortal Sect. In the future, if these successors leave the Dark North sect and establish another sect, I will not stop them. Bai Ziyue smiled faintly and said, there's no need for that. Since the Jade Lake Immortal Sect has been destroyed, there's not much point in establishing another sect. If I can come back to life in the future, I will naturally rebuild the sect myself. If I can't come back to life, why should I put the pressure on the disciples? Fairy by Chun continued. However, speaking of which, when I entered your Dark North sect, I did find a good seedling. Although her talent is not too strong, she is extremely suitable for the inheritance of my Jade Lake Immortal Sect. Oh, who is it? Ziyue was stunned and asked. Xiu Yupiao, Fairy by Chen said. After sending Fairy by Chun into the dark North Grotto Heaven, Ziyue did not leave immediately. Instead, he entered the Kunwu Golden Pagoda with a thought. A spirit-severing stage expert is indeed extraordinary. I originally thought that the saber aura in my body would slowly be worn down by my core essence over time. I didn't expect it to have such vitality and be able to devour my chi, blood, and core essence to slowly grow stronger. Ziyue sat cross-legged and coughed, spitting out a cloud of blood. Although the attack of the extraterrestrial demon had been weakened by the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and the 5 Divine Emperor robe, it had still injured him. This injury wasn't serious, and it didn't have much effect on his combat strength. However, it was very strange. Ziyue tried to expel it with his core essence, but because of the difference in strength, he was almost helpless. It's normal when you think about it. The strength of a spirit-severing stage expert is fundamentally different from that of an essence soul cultivator. Even the flesh and blood that is scattered outside contains a unique vitality that can last for eternity. The invasion of this saber aura naturally has this characteristic. With just my core essence, it's indeed very difficult to expel it completely, Ziwa muttered in his heart. He could feel that the great spirit golden thread in his soul had gradually recovered after a period of recuperation. He could not help but control the threads to enter his body. The great spirit golden thread had endless uses. Once it was activated, it could immediately increase his perception by more than 10 times, allowing him to pry into the flesh and blood particles in the depths of his body. The saber aura's strength surpassed his core essence and could similarly penetrate deep into the flesh and blood particles to cause damage. He naturally thought of using the great spirit golden thread to resist and expel it. Indeed, the moment he activated the great spirit golden thread, his perception was immediately magnified. It was enough to penetrate deep into his flesh and blood, allowing him to pry into the intricate way of power circulation within the extraterrestrial demon's saber aura. What a brilliant combination of power! It's also driven by the power of the essence soul and transformed by the structure of spiritual energy. However, the power combination of the saber aura's power is truly profound. Compared to it, even Tao techniques are far inferior. With the help of the great spirit golden thread, Ziwa finally discovered the difference in the power of the saber aura. Immediately, a trace of infatuation appeared in his eyes. The use of power, the mystery of the combination of the power of the essence soul and the Tao was indeed very brilliant. It was a kind of recombination of the laws of heaven and earth. He could only use the great spirit golden thread to pry into a little bit of it. However, if he wanted to truly comprehend it and use it for himself, he would need a long time. It was obvious that his body was still suffering from the wanton destruction of the saber aura. The great spirit golden thread was also slightly insufficient. He lacked this little bit of time. Therefore, he did not dare to hesitate. He hurriedly used the power of the great spirit golden thread and the endless core essence in his body to quickly charge towards the saber aura. If he did not have enough power, then he would make up for it with numbers. Although the saber aura was sharp and tough, and could be maintained by the chi and blood in his body, it was still unable to resist the invasion of the enormous core essence. ZZZ, strands of the saber aura's power were quickly expelled from his body. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. After 10 breaths, Ziwa suddenly realized that his great spirit golden thread had been used up. He did not hesitate. With a flip of his hand, several bottles of spiritual pills appeared in his hand. Soul Recovery Pill, Spiritual Perception Pill, Vitality Pill, Great Freedom Golden Pill. They were all high-grade spiritual pills that could help a cultivator recover his soul energy and repair his essence soul. Because he had his soul energy to recover, he did not need most of the spiritual pills. However, the corresponding spoils of war were not few. Therefore, he had stored some on him. Now, they were suitable for him to use. He stretched out his hand and crushed the pill bottle. The spiritual pills inside immediately turned into flowing light and were swallowed by him. As the core essence circulated, his flesh and blood trembled. Vitality spread. There was even a trace of cool air circulating in his soul. Instantly, his soul energy rapidly recovered. After the Great Spirit Golden Thread recovered to a certain extent, he used the Great Spirit Golden Thread again to expel the saber aura. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, half an hour later, when the Great Spirit Golden Thread in his soul was exhausted again, he expelled the last wisp of saber aura from his body. In this way, Ziwa's flesh wounds, which were originally difficult to heal, quickly recovered as his body trembled. His skin was as smooth as before, like a newborn baby. However, it was unbelievably tough and could not be damaged by metal or stone. "My wounds are healed." Ziwa secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Without this worry, he was completely at ease in the Dragon Palace. He was not afraid of any experts attacking him. Then, there are many spoils of war. Ziwa did not know how much he had gained from this trip to the Dragon Palace. After all, in addition to the spoils in the Dragon Palace, before entering the Dragon Palace, he had wiped out many sea demon forces. He had completely exterminated the giant whale clan, one of the 5 great sea demon clans. He had also plundered all the treasures in the giant whale immortal mansion. Therefore, for him, even counting the treasures was a process that took a lot of time. However, he was never tired of doing this. First, there's the corpse of the real dragon and the demonic saber. Ziyue was excited when he thought of these 2 treasures. Boom! As this thought flashed through his mind, a huge object suddenly fell from the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. It was the corpse of the real dragon. As a numinous treasure, the Kunwu Golden Pagoda naturally contained a vast space. Although it was not a Dharma treasure in the Grotto Heaven, it also had the ability to store things. Naturally, it could store the corpse of the real dragon. This corpse of the real dragon is the corpse of Ao Qing, a mighty spirit severing stage expert of the ancient real dragon clan. Although Ao Qing was not the dragon emperor of the real dragon clan, and his strength was slightly weaker than the dragon emperor, he had a deep understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. The Tao connotation and the aura of the real dragon in his body would make it difficult for ordinary initial stage, primordial soul realm cultivators to breathe. Ziyue carefully observed the corpse of the real dragon and carefully felt the Tao connotation and aura in his body. If an ordinary cultivator, or even an expert from a super immortal cultivation sect, such as the Heavenly Spirit sect or the Myriad sect, obtained this corpse of the real dragon, he would definitely be overjoyed. He would use all kinds of special methods to pry into the secrets of the real dragon from the corpse. In the eyes of a top expert, a complete corpse of an expert could indeed reveal many secrets. Even the cultivation techniques of the other party could be restored from the corpse. In other words, it was possible for immortal cultivation cultivators to obtain the inheritance of the real dragon. Even if they could only pry into 50 to 60%, or even 30 to 40%, it was enough to make countless cultivators excited. However, Ziyue had already obtained the inheritance of the 7 Dragon Emperor, Ao Shui, from the Memory Inheritance Hall. After comparison, he could easily determine that the cultivation technique that Ao Qing cultivated was the Divine Dragon World defying technique. The other cultivation techniques that Ao Qing cultivated were also mostly recorded in the inheritance. Therefore, the value of this real dragon's corpse was greatly reduced in his eyes. Only its flesh and blood and the wisps of Tao connotation and aura on its body were valued by him. However, no matter what, this is still the corpse of a real dragon, and it was the corpse of a mighty person who had reached the spirit-severing stage. Its Tao connotation is naturally formed, and its value is not inferior to a real spiritual treasure. Ziyue was satisfied. He then put it away and resealed it in the northern underworld Grotto Heaven. Then, with a flip of his hand, a huge saber appeared in his hand. It was the demonic treasure saber. Galu saber? Ziyue's soul easily resisted the invasion of the demonic chi in the saber and soon came into contact with the weapon spirit of the demonic treasure saber. The other party's weapon spirit did not have very strong spiritual intelligence. Although its spiritual intelligence was amazing, it was mostly instinctive, unlike the Memory Inheritance Hall and the Kunwu Golden Pagoda, which had awakened spiritual intelligence and was no different from a real person. However, through the other party's vague spiritual intelligence, Ziyue understood the name of the demonic treasure saber. It was the Galu saber. He tried to probe it with his soul power to see if it could recognize him as its master. However, this saber contained the spiritual imprint of the extraterrestrial demon, and it was very resistant to external power. As soon as Ziyue's soul power probed it, the Galu saber let out a hum, and the demonic chi surged, repelling his soul power. Fortunately, his soul was complete and transparent, and it was not tainted by anything. Otherwise, his soul would have been injured. After sensing the vague consciousness of the saber, he immediately understood the name of the saber. He also knew most of the other true skills like the back of his hand. As expected, it is not so easy to refine this Galu saber. It was difficult when it was ownerless, and it would take a lot of time. That extraterrestrial demon is not dead yet, so it is naturally more difficult to refine this demonic treasure saber than when it was ownerless. I have to erase the other party's primordial spirit imprint in the saber first. Zeus sighed softly, but he was not surprised. From this, he understood why Kong Mo's expression changed so drastically and he cried out when he touched the saber. That was because Kong Mo had already understood that the Galoo saber already had a master. However, he was killed by the soul-devouring demon Exalt before he could speak, which led to the subsequent changes. The soul-devouring demon Exalt's body was captured, and he died at Zeus's hands. Chapter 772. As for erasing the primordial spirit imprint of the extraterrestrial devil in the saber, Zeus was powerless to do so even if he wanted to. There was no other reason. The extraterrestrial demon's cultivation level was too high. The primordial spirit was mysterious, and its level of power was much higher than his. With his primordial spirit that had not been baptized by the heavenly tribulation, it was impossible to shake it. It seems that I can't use this saber in the short term. However, no matter what, it is still a saber that is comparable to a numinous treasure. Its value is astonishing. It will naturally play its role in the future. Although Zeus felt a little regretful, he was still in a good mood. With a flip of his hand, he put away the Jalawa war saber. Next, I will plunder the many treasures of the giant whale clan in the endless sea domain and the many rare treasures of heaven and earth that I obtained from the Dragon Palace. Of course, in addition to that, there are also the storage bags and treasures that I obtained when I killed many experts of the Sea Demon clan and demonic cultivators in the process. Zeus thought in his heart and waved his hand. Rumble, like a small mountain. A large pile of various treasures appeared in front of him. In addition to many spiritual materials and treasures, there were also storage bags that experts carried with them. The number of storage bags was not small, and there were nearly 1,000 of them. Next, it was simple. Zeus's divine sense scanned the many storage bags. With a thought, he controlled them with his spirit fire and quickly broke the restrictions of the storage bags. Although many of the storage bags were of high quality and belonged to primordial spirit realm experts, they contained a large space and had extremely high-level restrictions. However, Zeus was the most familiar with unlocking restrictions on storage bags. He had long mastered an ingenious method of unlocking restrictions. No matter how complicated the restriction was, it was as if it was nothing in his hands and could be easily broken. Therefore, in a short period of time, the restrictions of the storage bags were broken and all of them were opened. Go! Then, Zeus's divine sense swept across the storage bags. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, all the treasures in the storage bags were emptied and scattered in the boundless space of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. I've gained so much this time. Zeus held his breath for a long time. Even with his vast knowledge, he couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. His eyes flashed with a special light. Thousands of storage bags meant thousands of piles of treasures. Among them were spirit treasures, spiritual materials, spirit stones, jade slips, magic treasures, talismans, rare treasures of heaven and earth. There were truly too many of them. Zeus was not a money grubber, but just looking at these many treasures, a trace of infatuation appeared in his eyes. Most importantly, those treasures all belonged to him. After a while, Zeus finally started to count. It's just spirit stones. If we were to calculate it in terms of high-grade spirit stones, then it would be extremely difficult to obtain. 100 million. 100 million high-grade spirit stones. It's really beyond my imagination. If all of these spirit stones were used to upgrade the spirit vein in the northern underworld grotto heaven, it would probably be enough to upgrade the spirit vein from a high-grade 4 spirit vein to a high-grade 5 spirit vein, or even a grade 6 spirit vein. And this is just the spirit stones. Zeus used his divine sense to move all the spirit stones together and counted them separately. Then, he couldn't help but gasp. Of course, he had never seen 100 million high-grade spirit stones before. However, this was just spirit stones. The value of all the treasures, spiritual materials, and magic treasures were often more valuable than spirit stones. Spiritual materials, talismans, magic treasures, and rare treasures. Most of them are not very useful to me. However, if I were to sell them, the total value would be at least 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. This is not including the treasures that are not very valuable. Then, Zeweb began to calculate the value of the other materials. Those that were not very valuable, those that were more valuable, and those that were useful to him were taken out separately. Even so, the value of the treasures obtained was more than 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. As for these jade scroll eyes and stone tablets of inheritance, I'll leave them in the sect and let the disciples sort them out. If anyone is lucky enough to discover some valuable true techniques, it would increase the foundation of the Northern Underworld sect. It would also be a great opportunity for the disciples. Zeweb picked and picked. He didn't think highly of the jade scroll eyes. This was because the true techniques that he valued could not be carried by the jade scroll eyes. Then, he looked at some of the treasures that he had deliberately selected. These 3,000 Taoist puppet masters are items that I obtained from the 9 Stars Tao Palace. Under control, they can be combined into a formation that is comparable to a mid-stage primordial soul realm expert. It doesn't increase my strength by much, but it can be considered a great treasure. The only restriction is that it requires a cultivator's soul strength to be extremely strong. If a Golden Core Realm cultivator wants to use it, he must be at least at the peak of the Golden Core Realm and have a soul strength that is twice as strong as an ordinary peak Golden Core Realm cultivator. Zeweb looked at the motionless Taoist puppet masters. A single Taoist puppet master's combat strength was not weaker than a peak Divine Realm expert. Some of the puppets were of higher grades and stronger, and there was no lack of existences that were comparable to peak Golden Core Realm experts. He was quite satisfied with the harvest of these Taoist puppet masters. Although he had no use for them, he believed that there would be many cultivators who would be tempted by these Taoist puppet masters. After all, these Taoist puppet masters could increase a cultivator's strength greatly regardless of whether they were used individually or in a formation. While he was thinking about how to deal with them, he quickly took out another storage bag and put it away. Soul Planting Tao Technique. This is a rare technique that is used on the soul. Through this technique, a cultivator's soul can be directly captured and placed in a puppet under the cultivator's control. Although this method was evil, it was indeed quite ingenious. It seems that it was also obtained from Wang Xueji's storage bag. Zeweb looked at one of the few inheritance steals. His eyes flashed slightly, and he also put it away. This true method was naturally somewhat mysterious, especially the way to use the soul, which gave people a refreshing feeling. But now his vision had been raised to an extremely profound level with the 3 inheritances. Naturally, he didn't like the use of this true method. 100 Change Divine Stone, Ethereal Earth Core, Origin of all things. These are all ancient refining materials, and their value is infinite. Any one of them can become a primordial spirit treasure after being refined. If it falls into the hands of a powerhouse in the spirit-severing realm, it may become a spirit treasure after being refined by a brilliant method and awakened spirituality. However, for me, no matter how good a spirit treasure is, it is not as good as my own natal magic treasure. These can also be used as the nourishment of my natal magic treasure. Once I pass the heavenly tribulation and reach the primordial spirit realm, the opportunity for my North Sea flying sword to be promoted again will fall on these materials. At that time, it will certainly increase the grade and spirituality of the North Sea flying sword by a large margin, and it will help the magic treasure to enter the ranks of spirit treasures in advance. Zeweb then looked at a large pile of precious materials. Most of them were found by him from the Dragon Palace. Of course, there were also some that came from the thousands of storage bags. It was really a lot of scattered materials. He had already made arrangements in his heart. There is also this pile of primordial spirit treasures. There are dozens of them in total. Among them, there are 7 upper-grade primordial spirit treasures, 13 mid-grade primordial spirit treasures, and 35 low-grade primordial spirit treasures. Unfortunately, there are no supreme-grade primordial spirit treasures. For low-grade primordial spirit treasures, with Ziyue's vision, he naturally didn't care. After all, he could explode with terrifying power just by using perfect, great magical powers or Dao techniques. The need for magic treasures had always been very small. Only upper-grade or supreme-grade primordial spirit treasures could exert a certain effect and increase his strength when he used them. Therefore, he only found one upper-grade primordial spirit flying sword and two upper-grade primordial spirit defensive treasures. He planned to spend some time to refine them. As for the rest, they would naturally be like most of the other materials. They would either be left in the North Sea Grotto Heaven or sold in exchange for resources that he could use. It took some time for him to take stock of the loot he had gained this time. Ziyue kept all the gains. I have indeed gained a lot from the trip to the Dragon Palace. The Kunwu Golden Pagoda, the inheritance of the three spirit severing stage experts, the Jialuo War Saber, the corpse of the true dragon. If these treasures are included, the total value of the gains will be more than 1 billion upper-grade spirit stones, 10 billion, or even 100 billion. Most importantly, my strength had soared in the process of fighting for the treasures. Not only have I broken through to the complete Golden Core stage, but my soul has also become complete and transparent, and I have obtained the Great Soul Golden Thread. Moreover, I have also broken the 12 Golden Core shackles that originally covered my Golden Core. Now, I am really only one step away from the next stage, the Primordial Spirit stage. As long as I want, I can even take this step at any time and officially start to attract the Heavenly Tribulation. My soul will go through the Heavenly Tribulation and enter the Primordial Spirit stage. As long as Ziyue thought of the gains this time, he would be extremely agitated and excited. He originally thought that the 12 Golden Core shackles would be a huge shackle that hindered his progress. He did not expect that he would successfully break them. Compared to that, the spirit stones he had obtained were insignificant. Next, it was the Heavenly Tribulation. However, the baptism of the Heavenly Tribulation is, after all, unusual. Although I have accumulated enough now, if I want to pass the Heavenly Tribulation, I have to make sufficient preparations and be very careful. This is because if I fail, I will definitely die. The Heavenly Tribulation of the Primordial Spirit can only succeed and not fail. Ziyue had not experienced the baptism of the Primordial Spirit Heavenly Tribulation before. Although he was very confident in his own foundation, he did not dare to be careless. Moreover, he had a faint premonition that his Heavenly Tribulation would definitely be unusual. It would definitely surpass that of other Primordial Spirit stage powerhouses. After all, the cultivation method that he cultivated was the best in the world. When he formed the Golden Core that he condensed was even more perfect. Therefore, when the Heavenly Tribulation descended, the power of the Heavenly Tribulation would naturally be stronger. At this moment, his heart suddenly moved. In a flash, he rushed out of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda. Then he saw a group of cultivators in the distance striding toward him. It was Fu Yunfan and a group of human powerhouses. In addition to Fu Yunfan, there was also Hua Dingshan and Hua Fengyu, as well as a group of powerhouses from the Giant Whale and Mortal City. However, among all the human powerhouses, Mo Fan of the Celestial Spirit Sect was not in the group. Of course, the Sea Monster Clan did not dare to get close. At this moment, most of them had a smug look on their faces and appeared to be rather excited. "Greetings, Taoist Northming." From afar, Fu Yunfan bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, Senior Northming." Hua Dingshan and the others followed suit and spoke respectfully. "From the looks of it, all of you have gained a lot," Ziyue said with a faint smile. "The Memory Inheritance Palace of the Dragon Clan is indeed the treasure of the Dragon Clan. This time, almost every cultivator who stepped into it received a chance to obtain the inheritance. Although the inheritance is judged based on the cultivator's talent and potential, even the weakest inheritance in the Memory Inheritance Palace belongs to a powerhouse in the late stage of the Primordial Spirit Realm. Therefore, everyone has gained a lot." Fu Yunfan explained with a smile. Ziyue nodded. He would not delve into what kind of inheritance they had obtained. During this time, we met Mo Fan, who asked me to apologize to you. He hopes that you can resolve the grudge between you and the Celestial Spirit sect. Fu Yin Fan continued. Resolve the grudge? The real key is not me, but the Celestial Spirit sect. Ziyue shook his head and laughed, then avoided the topic. He had always kept a respectful distance from a superforce like the Celestial Spirit sect. On the contrary, it was them who had provoked him time and time again, which led to so many incidents. Now, Mo Fan wanted to resolve the grudge because he was afraid of his strength. Furthermore, he had avoided meeting him and left early. How could it be so easy? Sect Leader North Ming, about the law-imparting elder you mentioned earlier. Fu Yin Fan did not mind hearing this. He did not care too much about the Celestial Spirit sect. Previously, he was just passing on the message. What he really cared about was the condition that Ziyue had mentioned. Now that he had gained a lot from the Dragon Palace, he was naturally very eager to obtain the law-imparting elder, especially the benefits related to the law cultivation room. Next, I need to find a place with a spiritual vein to be the base of the sect. I'll leave this matter to you. I only have one request. It has to be at least a grade 5 spiritual vein with abundant resources around it. As long as you do this well, you will naturally be rewarded. Ziyue did not have the intention to directly bring Fu Yunfan into the North Underworld Cave. After all, Fu Yunfan was an expert in the advanced stage of the primordial soul realm. He was not weak. If he had evil intentions, it would be troublesome. Therefore, he arranged for him to do some things. Yes, sect leader. Fu Yunfan was relieved after receiving Ziyue's promise. He quickly agreed excitedly. By the way, how much do you know about the heavenly tribulation of the primordial soul realm? Ziyue thought of the heavenly tribulation that he was about to trigger and cleanse his soul to turn into a primordial soul. He was moved and asked calmly, Heavenly tribulation? Sect leader, are you going to go through the heavenly tribulation? Fu Yunfan was stunned. He suddenly remembered that Ziyue was only at the peak of the Golden Core realm. It was only because the combat strength that he had displayed was too shocking, far surpassing his own, that he had subconsciously neglected it. Chapter 773. Immediately after, he recalled the scene of him transcending the heavenly tribulation, and a trace of fear appeared in the depths of his eyes. He was not the only one. Hua Dingshan and the other Essence Soul Realm cultivators around him also revealed a look of lingering fear when they recalled the might of the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation is a hurdle that every cultivator has to overcome before reaching the Essence Soul Realm. The might and intensity of the heavenly tribulation that every cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm who has broken free from the shackles of the Golden Core is different. Generally speaking, it has something to do with the cultivator's strength and foundation, as well as karma, such as killing. Therefore, the chances of demonic cultivators overcoming the heavenly tribulation are usually much lower than immortal cultivators. The chances of immortal cultivators overcoming the heavenly tribulation are also lower than those of Buddhist cultivators who mainly cultivate the Dharma and are naturally untainted by karma. Of course, this does not mean that Buddhist cultivators have a higher chance of attaining the essence soul than demonic cultivators and immortal cultivators. This actually varies from person to person. In the immortal cultivator world, there was a statistic. At a certain time, 10 demonic cultivators, 10 immortal cultivators, and 10 Buddhist cultivators transcended the heavenly tribulation. In the end, the demonic cultivators had the most essence souls. Therefore, every cultivator is actually very different. Immediately after, Fu Yunfan said with a serious expression, "There is great terror in the heavenly tribulation. The changes in strength are not something that we can control at all. If we experience the baptism of the heavenly tribulation again, I dare not guarantee that we can survive it safely. This is because our state of mind, the strength of our will, the desire to live, and many other aspects are different from before." Hua Dingshan could not help but say from the side, "The strength of the heavenly tribulation is related to one's strength. Whether or not one can survive, the heavenly tribulation, is also related to one's state of mind and state. Ziyue nodded, looking as if he had learned something. Actually, there are also cultivators who have summarized and divided the heavenly tribulation into 3 types. They are the 3-9 minor heavenly tribulation, the 6-9 intermediate heavenly tribulation, and the 9-9 major heavenly tribulation. Generally speaking, the higher the grade of the golden core and the deeper the foundation of the cultivator, the more powerful the heavenly tribulation will be when it descends. Of course, correspondingly, one's strength after transcending the tribulation and the benefits obtained would be greater and stronger. Most of the cultivators who had formed a golden core of the upper 3 grades would have to face the 3 minor heavenly tribulations. The strength of such a heavenly tribulation was moderate, so the chances of surviving it were relatively higher. If one was well prepared and had the protection of a great formation and 1 or 2 treasures, the chances of surviving it would be even higher. Perhaps 1 out of 3 people would be able to pass the trial. As for the power of the 6th or 6th grade heavenly tribulation, it was much stronger. Only those with extraordinary talent who had a grade 2 or even grade 1 core would have to face a 6th grade heavenly tribulation. Usually, only 1 or 2 out of 10 cultivators at the peak of the golden core realm will be able to survive. As for the 9 major heavenly tribulations, they seem to be specially prepared for super geniuses and demon-level existences. Usually, only Emperor-level experts or cultivators who were half a step away from the primordial soul realm when they were in the golden core realm would have to undergo the 9 major heavenly tribulations. The chances of passing were even lower. Of the 10 titled emperors, it would be hard for even one of them to survive. Of course, as mentioned earlier, this also varied from person to person. If there was a great change in the world, or when the immortal spells were at their peak, the cultivator's strength, luck, beliefs, and other aspects would change due to the change in fate. This would greatly increase the chances of surviving the heavenly tribulation. In the immortal spell world, there was a special period in the past where 5 out of 10 titled emperors managed to transcend the heavenly tribulation and form the primordial soul realm. The chances of success were greatly increased. And these titled emperors who achieved the primordial soul realm were usually at the beginning stage of the primordial soul realm, but were able to fight against those at the middle stage of the primordial soul realm. Eventually, most of them reached the peak of the primordial soul realm. There were even some who broke through the shackles of the realm and became powerful immortals. Fu Yinfan had been cultivating for a long time and was very knowledgeable. Because he was from a mid-tier sect, it was very difficult for him to break through to the primordial soul realm. Therefore, he was especially knowledgeable about this. He did not dare to hide anything and explained everything to Ziyue. I see. Ziyue's heart skipped a beat, and he nodded slowly. He had always known that there was a huge barrier between the golden elixir realm and the primordial soul realm for immortal spell cultivators. The heavenly tribulation was one of the barriers that separated the golden elixir realm and primordial soul realm cultivators. It was only now that he heard Fu Yunfan and the others' explanation that he had a better understanding of the heavenly tribulation. However, according to them, the 9 major heavenly tribulations were considered the strongest heavenly tribulation. This meant that his chances of surviving the heavenly tribulation were much higher. Even titled emperors had a chance of surviving the heavenly tribulation. He was naturally confident that his chances of surviving the heavenly tribulation were much higher. Of course, to be safe, he still asked, "Is the 9 major heavenly tribulation the strongest heavenly tribulation?" Generally speaking, yes. However, due to my limited knowledge, I am not sure if there are stronger heavenly tribulations. Fu Yinfan wanted to nod, but after a moment of hesitation, he thought of Ziyue's uniqueness. Based on his strength and performance, when he faced the heavenly tribulation, he would have to face the strongest heavenly tribulation. The difficulty of the 9 major heavenly tribulations was really nothing to him. Therefore, he did not dare to make any guarantees. This was because he knew that the tests that heaven and earth gave to cultivators were always relative. There was no guarantee that Ziyue would be too talented and summon a stronger heavenly tribulation to strike him. Therefore, the heavenly tribulation that I have to face is very likely to be stronger than the 9 major heavenly tribulations. Ziyue looked at Fu Yunfan and the others who continued to search for treasures in the Dragon Palace and could not help but ponder. The foundation of the perfect violet golden elixir was comparable to the strength of a late-stage primordial soul realm cultivator, and the attack that could unleash the strength of a peak primordial soul realm cultivator. It was indeed a little too heaven-defying. It was very likely that a heavenly tribulation stronger than the 9 major heavenly tribulations would strike him. Among the 3 great inheritances, the Dragon Emperor Ao Shui and the Thunder Saint were not easy to consider because they were of foreign races. As for the Heart Sword True Honorable, he was famous for his Heart Sword technique and was extraordinary. The cultivation technique that he cultivated was not too special. Therefore, when the Heart Sword True Honorable went through the 9 major heavenly tribulations, there was a limit to what he could use as a reference. However, in the immortal spell world, there are cultivators who have formed the violet golden elixir. I believe that the top 10 super forces will have records of the strength of the heavenly tribulations that cultivators of the violet golden elixir go through. Before I figure this out, I have to be careful. At the very least, I have to wait until the attributes panel finishes upgrading. Ziyue placed great importance on this heavenly tribulation. The attributes panel was his greatest trump card. Naturally, he wanted to wait until the attributes panel finished upgrading before going through the heavenly tribulation. After all, no matter what, the time reversal ability of the attributes panel would definitely give him some leeway when he went through the heavenly tribulation. Before the attributes panel is officially upgraded, I also have to make some preparations in case of emergencies. One of them is to choose some true techniques from the 3 great inheritances to cultivate and increase my strength as much as possible. Ziyue looked up slightly, revealing a glimmer of light. The 3 great inheritances of the spirit-severing realm contained too many true techniques and were too mysterious. Not to mention the great abilities, just the Dao techniques alone were no less than 10, not to mention the fundamental defensive techniques that they cultivated. Naturally, he had to choose carefully. In terms of offense, I have the 9 Extinction Divine Sword and the Essence Fused Divine Light. Logically speaking, I don't need much. However, the Heart Sword True Honorable created the Heart Sword technique is shockingly powerful and can be called a supreme technique. Once I cultivate it to perfection, it will definitely increase my strength to another level. If I had mastered the Heart Sword technique when facing the extraterritorial demon, it would have been impossible for the extraterritorial demon to escape. Moreover, not only is the Heart Sword technique unparalleled in offense, but it also has the corresponding means to trap and defend the enemy. Ziyue coveted the Heart Sword technique very much, so he naturally wouldn't give it up. Then, it's time to choose a defensive technique. Although the 5-God Emperor Imperial Robe was not bad, its defensive power was still a bit weak to the current me. This was especially true when I encountered an expert who could match up to me. The Kunwa Golden Pagoda's defense is indeed excellent and can protect me for a short period of time. However, when I use it, there's always a layer, so it's not as convenient as the true techniques that I have mastered. I'll choose Dragon Emperor Ao Shui's True Dragon Mystic Armor Technique. Not only is the True Dragon Mystic Armor Technique unparalleled in defense, but it's also very beneficial for the cultivation of my physical body. Once I cultivate it to perfection, it's very normal for my physical body to be comparable to a true dragon of the same level. Ziyue then chose the second true technique. In terms of defensive means, it was also a supreme technique. It was enough for him to be unparalleled in the primordial spirit realm, and he didn't have to worry about being easily broken through by techniques of the same level. Primordial spirit attacks are the most important for primordial spirit realm experts. ordinary primordial spirit attacks can be mostly blocked by my primordial spirit golden silk in the condition of perfection of my soul. However, if I encounter some top primordial spirit secret techniques, it's extremely dangerous. For example, when I encountered the extraterrestrial demon previously, it's only because the other party's primordial spirit was severely injured that he couldn't use it at all. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to withstand a casual attack, and my soul would be shattered and I would die. Ziyue had always been very concerned about primordial spirit attacks. However, he didn't have any true techniques, so he just let it be. Fortunately, although he had encountered many primordial spirit realm experts previously, they were all of low birth. However, these experts were either of lower birth and did not possess powerful primordial spirit realm attack techniques. Even if they were of extraordinary birth and had also obtained the inheritance of true skills, they were unable to unleash powerful primordial spirit attacks due to insufficient progress in their cultivation. Therefore, he had been as stable as before and didn't encounter too many calamities. However, this was all temporary. With his level of strength, if he encountered a powerful enemy in the future, he definitely wouldn't have such a shortcoming. Naturally, he had to be prepared early. The defensive power of the Kunwa Golden Pagoda couldn't defend against primordial spirit attacks. In terms of killing power, his natural ability couldn't be compared to some top primordial spirit attack techniques. There are true techniques for primordial spirit attack techniques in the 3 spirit severing inheritances. However, the strongest one should be the 9 lightning god-destroying seal left behind by the Thunder Sage Venerable. Ziyue compared and soon made a choice. Most of the inheritances of the Thunder Sage Venerable were images of thunder gods and demons. However, there was a unique image of the 9 lightning god-destroying seal among these images. One could imagine how extraordinary it was. 3 supreme techniques: the Heart Sword Technique, True Dragon Mysterious Armor Technique, and 9 Lightning God-Destroying Seal. They happen to belong to the experts of the 3 great inheritances. Once cultivated to perfection, it will definitely allow my strength to undergo a tremendous change. Ziyue chose the 3 true techniques. His emotions surged, and he only calmed down after a long time. Then, he looked around. The Dragon Palace is useless to me. The Memory Inheritance Hall should be left for the Fated One. Maybe I can come again when I'm stronger in the future. Ziyue looked in the direction of the Memory Inheritance Hall one last time. He wanted to remember the location of the space. However, due to the formation, the trajectory was blurry. In addition, the Dragon Palace was always moving and there was no fixed point. In the end, he gave up. Then, he took a step forward and soon came to a hall. In the hall, an intact teleportation formation was revealed. However, due to the passage of time, the spiritual stones in the teleportation formation had turned into powder and lost their effect. Fortunately, the teleportation formation was intact and didn't affect the teleportation. Previously, he was clear. There were only 2 ways to leave the Dragon Palace. The first was to use the teleportation formation. The second was to break through the space barrier and enter the astral plane through the turbulence of the void. Compared to being able to walk in the turbulence of the space, he might encounter many unknown dangers. Naturally, the teleportation formation was much safer. Therefore, after Ziyue found the teleportation formation, he didn't hesitate. With a flick of his finger, more than 100 spiritual stones of upper grade landed in each corner of the teleportation formation. Buzz! With the influx of spiritual stones, the teleportation formation was quickly activated as the spiritual chi rolled. Ziyue didn't know where the teleportation formation would send him. However, based on his understanding of formations, he could roughly see that the teleportation formation would lead to the purple-green mountains of the Firmament territory, which was the same as his previous destination. Therefore, he quickly made up his mind. He stepped out and stood directly in the center of the teleportation formation. A spiritual light appeared. The teleportation formation was immediately activated. Buzz! In an instant, Ziyue disappeared. Ahem! It's been too long after all. I didn't expect that the other side of the teleportation formation had been destroyed. If I hadn't used the 9 extinction divine sword in time to break through the space barrier, I really don't know where I would have been teleported to. In an area covered with dense forest, a figure suddenly broke through the air. He looked a little dusty and embarrassed. This figure was undoubtedly Ziyue. He had used the teleportation formation in the Dragon Palace to leave, but he didn't expect that the other side of the teleportation formation had been destroyed long ago. Suddenly, he lost his direction and had to break free from the teleportation force. He used some means to break through the space barrier and directly rushed out. However, he was in a hurry and naturally couldn't maintain a stable and calm body. He looked a little messy. Chapter 774. Due to the chaotic spatial coordinates, it was extremely difficult for immortal spell cultivators to reach their destination smoothly. If they were lucky, they could break through the spatial barrier with the help of the teleportation and reach a safe place. If they were unlucky, the teleportation distance was too far and the teleportation power was exhausted. It was very likely that the cultivator would be stranded in the spatial turbulence. At that time, if the cultivator didn't have the strength to break through the spatial barrier, it would be very dangerous and difficult for them to survive. Ziyue's luck was not so good. When he sensed that the teleportation power was gradually insufficient to break through the spatial barrier, he had to break through it himself. Fortunately, with his strength and means, he had long been able to break through the void. He broke through the space barrier and rushed out smoothly. Soon, he swept his consciousness and scanned the surroundings. A strange expression soon appeared on his face. This is the 100,000 mountains. He listened to the beast roars around him and looked at the endless mountains in the distance. He also sensed the unique aura of the 100,000 mountains. He was very familiar with this aura and could easily identify it. However, this place is not the 100,000 mountains near the cloud-piercing mountain range. Judging from the terrain and the surrounding spiritual chi, it should be the 100,000 mountains closer to the Indigo Mountains. Ziyue pondered for a moment. With a flip of his hand, he quickly took out the astral map he'd obtained from the giant whale immortal city and confirmed this point. This place is actually the periphery of the 100,000 mountains. It's only 1,300 miles away from the Indigo Mountains. The nearest ancient rhyme immortal city is only 200 miles away. Ziyue relaxed. At least the general direction of the teleportation this time was correct and saved him a lot of time. Roar! Right at this moment, an enormous gray wolf silently lurked near by Ziyue. At the instant it approached, it suddenly let out a howl and fiercely slapped out with its claws. However, before the giant wolf could get close, its body, flesh, and blood silently collapsed, annihilated, and turned into ashes. However, Bai Ziyue was nowhere to be seen at his original spot. It was as if he'd never appeared. Every generation in the astral boundary produces powerful individuals, and each of them has been in the limelight for hundreds of years. But recently, the astral boundary is really surging like a storm, and there are really many rising powerhouses. In the true law domain, the genius cultivator Jiang Moyu went against the odds to kill immortals at the peak of the Golden Core realm and slayed an early-stage Essence Soul realm demon. In the Sky Devil region, the White Bone Taoist had single-handedly killed 3,000 barbarian cultivators and exterminated the White Barbarian tribe, which was one of the 700 barbarian tribes. Fortunately, the Firmament territory also has a genius expert who can rival him, Sidu Zheng. No one knew how strong he was, because when he attacked, his opponent was already dead. Even if they didn't die, they were still terrified of him and refused to talk about his strength and methods. Rumor has it that even the previous chief disciple of the Celestial Spirit sect, Lord Ast, once said that he was no match for Sidu Zheng in the same realm. The previous first seat of the Celestial Spirit sect, Lord Ast, he had the strength of a king at the late stage of the Golden Core realm and was a super genius who could rival an Essence Soul realm expert at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Even he admitted that his realm was no match for Sidu Zheng. Now, Situ Zheng seems to be at the peak of the Golden Core realm. How strong is his real strength? At least not weaker than Jiang Moyu in the True Law domain and the White Bone Taoist in the Sky Devil region. He can definitely be called the #1 Golden Core cultivator in the Firmament territory. It's said that when he condensed his Golden Core, he was very different from ordinary cultivators. There was a little purple in his Golden Core, which is 1 in a million. It's the purple pole Golden Core that's above the first grade Golden Core. The purple pole Golden Core. In a restaurant in the ancient Rime Immortal City, a group of cultivators was talking loudly and animatedly. However, when it came to the possibility that Situ Zheng had condensed an extreme violet Golden Core, most people were at a loss. However, the cultivators who understood the mysteries of this sucked in breaths of cold air. Among the Golden Cores, purple was the most precious and supreme. To be able to have a little purple in his Golden Core, one could imagine the brilliance of his cultivation method and the depth of his foundation. Because of this, it was very normal for Situ Zheng to possess such extraordinary methods. The purple pole Golden Core? Ziyue, who was sitting in a corner with a casual look, could not help but pay more attention when he heard this. This was the second person he had heard of who possessed the purple pole Golden Core. The first was a top expert at the peak of the Golden Core realm in the Celestial Spirit sect thousands of years ago. He was known as the king of the Golden Core realm and was undefeated in his realm. However, it was said that he failed to break free from the shackles of the Golden Core and survive the primordial spirit tribulation. Now, he had already died. As for Situ Zheng, he was the second. Have you forgotten the Taoist North Ming who went against the odds and killed 2 experts at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm in the Star Source Divine Mountain? Right at this moment, a person sitting next to him suddenly spoke up. His tone carried a trace of fanaticism as he spoke. Taoist North Ming? Most of the cultivators were at a loss. Ziyue's battle achievements at the Star Source Divine Mountain were widely known in the surrounding areas. However, the Purple-Green Mountains were relatively far from the Star Source Divine Mountain. Naturally, the news did not spread quickly. Many people had not heard of his name. That's right. This Taoist North Ming is also a cultivator of the Firmament territory. His strength is astonishing. He is also in the Golden Core realm, but he went against the odds and killed 2 experts at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. Oh yes, it is said that the heavenly spirit sect's sovereign Joju Sword King also died in the hands of this Taoist North Ming. The cultivator looked at the people around him and said in an exaggerated tone, "The Joju Sword King has indeed died. Some time ago, when the news spread, it caused quite a stir. However, no one knew who had killed him. Could it really be Taoist Dark North? Also, who were the 2 experts at the primordial spirit realm that he killed?" One of them could not help but ask. The others seemed to believe his words very much. When they heard this, they put away their previous contempt and became serious. That's right. The 2 experts at the primordial spirit realm that he killed were the True Devil Sect's Patriarch Bitter Ginger and the 9-star Tao Palace's Patriarch Rising Cloud. Oh yes, it is said that a secret place of the 9-star Tao Palace was also destroyed by this Taoist North Ming alone. The primordial soul realm expert guarding that mystic place seems to have died at his hands. The person sitting next to Yue spoke with an even more fanatical tone. He killed 3 primordial spirit realm experts in a row. Everyone was shocked. Even if they found it hard to believe, they had all heard of the names of the primordial spirit realm experts. It was not difficult to determine whether it was true or false. They also did not believe that this cultivator would make such irresponsible remarks in front of them, just to boast. In the immortal spell world, trouble came from the mouth. If there was no real evidence, how could this person dare to make such a solemn vow? I did not expect that my deeds would spread here. Ziyue listened quietly, and a strange expression gradually appeared on his face. He did not expect to hear about his deeds. Even if these deeds were only said in the early days, if the battle results of the trip to the Dragon Palace were spread, it would definitely shock the world and cause an even greater sensation. He also believed that with the return of the Sea Demon clan, Fu Yunfan, Hua Dingshan, and the other cultivators, as well as the celestial spirit sects True, Supremacy Mo Fan, and the others from the Dragon Palace. The news would definitely spread like wildfire and be placed on the desks of the sect masters and palace masters of the various immortal spell forces. In that case, this Taoist North Ming is indeed qualified to stand side by side with the three geniuses I mentioned earlier. After a long while, the cultivator who first listed Jiang Moyu from the True Law domain, White Bone Taoist from the Sky Demon domain, and Sidu Zheng from the Firmament domain could not help but speak cautiously. Indeed, which of these four people does not have impressive battle records? King-level experts are not worthy of their status at all. They should be called the domain monarch, the ruler of a domain. Speaking of which, the Firmament domain is really prosperous. We actually have two experts who have reached the gold core, domain monarch level. The group of cultivators could not help but comment excitedly. Domain monarch? That's an interesting title. However, I'm not from the Firmament domain. My real origin is the ancient Baron domain. The corners of Ziyue's mouth lifted slightly. He also felt that it was interesting, but he did not care about it in his heart. His true strength would never change because of the discussions of the outside world. He knew his true combat strength and did not need to be told by outsiders. However, if it did not affect him, he would naturally be happy to receive such praise. However, when he thought of the ancient Baron domain, his face became gloomy. The ancient Baron domain was one of the four major domains in the star boundary. However, because of a shocking change 10,000 years ago, it was completely destroyed. Only a small corner of it still had cultivators' legacies left. And he was a cultivator who was born and grew up in the corner of the ancient Baron domain. What exactly happened in the ancient Baron domain 10,000 years ago? Why would a domain be destroyed? It made the region, which was originally not weaker than the True Law domain of the Firmament domain, become like a celestial skilled desert. Even the God Realm cultivators are scarce. Bai Ziyue recalled that when he was in the ancient desolate region, there were only about 10 divine realm cultivators in all the major immortal sections. Among them, the strongest was only at the middle stage of the God Realm. Moreover, the mysterious barrier that separated the ancient Baron domain from the ancient Baron domain to the 100,000 mountains was still a mystery to him. Now his strength was gradually increasing. With the strength, he also had the confidence. Naturally, he would want to track down all the puzzles. If possible, he could break the seal and restore the ancient Baron domain to the glory of the Antiquity Age. As his thoughts wandered, the discussion of the surrounding cultivators did not end. Soon, it turned to the recent grand event that had happened in the Purple-Green Mountain Range. One of the pieces of news made by Ziyue's heart skip a beat. Needless to say, the experts of the four great domain kings are all extremely talented. However, the most generous one is still Situ Zheng. Someone seemed to hold Situ Zheng in high esteem and said in a respectful tone, "What do you mean?" Someone could not help but ask. This heavenly tribulation is probably a big hurdle for any Golden Core Realm cultivator. However, I heard that Situ Zheng had publicly announced a few years ago that he would allow all the cultivators in the world to watch him go through the heavenly tribulation. Just 3 months ago, it was said that Situ Zheng had already broken through all the shackles of the Golden Core. It was finally confirmed that on the 8th day of the next month, in the Black Wind Grand Canyon, his soul will be out of his body to receive the heavenly tribulation. Situ Zheng was at the pinnacle of the Golden Core realm, and what he ignited was the rarely seen amethyst Golden Core. What kind of scene would his heavenly tribulation be? How powerful would it be? No Golden Core realm cultivator would be willing to miss the opportunity to observe it, right? This is definitely a blessing for all the cultivators in the world. That person said with a face full of pride. Is this news true? A cultivator sitting at a table on the second floor could not help but be excited and asked curiously. Of course it is true. This news is naturally not something that ordinary cultivators would know. It is only spread among Golden Core Realm cultivators or even stronger Primordial Soul Realm cultivators. However, unfortunately, my uncle is a golden core realm cultivator and has some reputation in the surrounding generation. Naturally, he knows about this news. That cultivator's face turned serious as he promised. It is indeed generous. However, one needs to have sufficient strength and confidence. If one does not have the protection of an expert, rashly spreading the news of one's heavenly tribulation is a path to death. However, Situ Zheng is the son of the Myriad Phenomenon Sect Master, and his master is also a primordial soul realm cultivator. Old Monster Cloud Mist does indeed have the confidence to publicly announce the location of the heavenly tribulation. The group of people agreed. As they spoke, they explained the source of Situ Zheng's confidence. Situ Zheng is going to publicly undergo the heavenly tribulation. It will be on the 8th day of the next month. In other words, there's still about 20 days left. Ziyue's eyes also shone with a strange light. Currently, he had also broken through all the shackles of the Golden Core realm. The only obstacle in front of him was the primordial soul heavenly tribulation. Although he had previously understood the strength of the heavenly tribulation from Fuyan Fan and the others, there were still many things that he had to be wary of. However, no matter how much others said, it could not compare to seeing it with his own eyes. Moreover, Situ Zheng was a cultivator who had condensed an extreme violet golden core, just like him. Although the extreme violet golden core that the other party had condensed would not be as pure and perfect as his own, it was still a step into the same level. The strength and changes of the heavenly tribulation that Situ Zheng was about to undergo would be extremely similar to the heavenly tribulation that he was about to undergo. Black Wind Grand Canyon? Looks like I will have to go there when the time comes. Ziyue was slightly excited. This was a rare piece of good news that he had heard in this place. Then, he finally did not stay any longer. He put down a few spirit stones and walked out of the restaurant. Originally, he was still considering whether he should go near the Heavenly Spirit sect to find out more about Fan Qingyu and the others. Or he could settle down and cultivate the 3 supreme techniques first. Now, he finally had a clear goal. That was to go to the Black Wind Grand Canyon. The Black Wind Grand Canyon was not close to his current location. It would take him at least 5 days to reach it. Chapter 775. In a huge mansion, there were also 2 cultivators, one old and one young, conversing with each other. They were talking about Situ Zheng's heavenly tribulation. Both of them had extraordinary statuses. The old man was Pang Fong, the sect leader of the Daoyuo Immortal Sect, the 3rd largest sect in the Firmament Territory, after the Celestial Spirit Sect and the Nature Sect. Next to him was Lu Wanshu, one of Pang Fong's true disciples. His immortal cultivation had reached the peak of the Golden Core realm, and he was only 1 step away from the primordial spirit realm. Even if Situ Zheng and the other geniuses did not appear, he could still be considered a hero among the younger generation. He was as strong as the Celestial Spirit Sect's Jiuju Sword King, or even stronger. Master, Situ Zheng's tribulation can be said to be one of the rare occasions in recent years where immortal spells are flourishing. However, there's something I don't understand. If an ordinary sect had a super genius like Situ Zheng, whose strength had reached the peak of the Gold Core realm, they would try their best to hide and protect him. At the very least, they would send a powerful nascent soul realm expert to protect him and prevent him from dying. Heavenly tribulation is a battle of life and death. It's the most dangerous, and no one has absolute confidence. Why did the Nature Sect push him out to do it publicly? Lu Wanshu asked curiously. It was indeed a magnificent feat for an immortal cultivation cultivator to do it publicly. Any cultivator in the Firmament Territory who wanted to do it would carefully find a secret place to do it. They were afraid of any accidents or disturbances. However, Situ Zheng did the opposite. Not only did he say that he would do it publicly, but he also invited his peers and many seniors who were stuck at the peak of the Golden Core realm to watch the ceremony. This puzzled Lu Wanshu. He had broken through the shackles of the Golden Core a few years earlier than Situ Zheng, but he was still not confident enough and did not dare to rush out of the golden core to do the primordial spirit tribulation. It's for Yang Wang. It's also for the upcoming great changes in heaven and earth. Pang Fong said in a low voice with a complicated look on his face. Yang Wang, great changes in heaven and earth. Lu Wenshu's face changed. If Situ Zheng succeeds in the heavenly tribulation this time, his reputation and fame will be raised to the extreme. Any cultivator of the same age as him would find it difficult to match him, at least in terms of reputation and righteousness. In this way, if he wants to do something, he can just wave his arm and gather his followers. Pang Fong paused for a moment before continuing. And it just so happens that the entire star boundary is about to undergo another great change. If Situ Zheng's growth went smoothly, he would most likely become a leader. At the very least, he would be a young leader. As everyone knew, any sect master or leader of a force would have the fate of many experts of the sect entwined with them. If there were no accidents, their cultivation speed would often far surpass that of cultivators of the same level and aptitude. As for the young leader, he was connected to the entire star world, or at least the firmament territory. How great was the fate of many young experts? In that case, how shocking would his cultivation speed and strength growth be in the future? In the future, his achievements would reach an extremely shocking level because of this. At the very least, he can be called a supreme realm expert, like the Heavenly Spirit Sect Master and the Myriad Phenomenon Sect Master. If he is lucky enough, it is very possible for him to become a mighty figure of the spirit severing stage. What? A young leader can become a supreme realm expert? Or even a mighty figure of the spirit severing stage? Lu Wenshu's heart skipped a beat. He knew that a sect master or leader of a force would have a great deal of fate entwined with them. Even if each cultivator brought only a small amount of fate to the other party, it would accumulate and make them seem like the embodiment of heaven and earth. Everything they did would often go smoothly. The chances of becoming a powerhouse and breaking through bottlenecks were much higher than that of ordinary cultivators. For this reason, he had been working hard to become the exalted immortal sect's young sect master. Even though he was only one of his master's true disciples, he could feel that his cultivation speed was much faster than before. However, he had never thought that there was a way to become a young leader. It could allow a cultivator to smoothly grow and reach the supreme realm, or even the spirit-severing stage. Of course, this is not usually possible. Only when there was a great change in the world and the entire star boundary's immortal spell world was facing a great crisis would the various sects and forces unite. And now, the entire star boundary's immortal spell world has once again encountered a major crisis. A trace of worry crossed Pang Fong's face as he spoke. What kind of crisis? Lu Wenshu's heart tightened. You've also cultivated the exalted immortal sect's signature art, the exalted immortal scripture. There's a spirit-predicting art in this cultivation method. If you can cultivate it to initial success, you should be able to sense that a great crisis is about to befall you at any given moment. This kind of omen that the heavens and earth sent down in advance to warn the world would only be triggered when the entire astral boundary was facing a major crisis. The last time it happened was 10,000 years ago during the chaos of the immortals. The ancient desolate realm, which was a neighbor of the firmament territory, was almost as powerful as the firmament territory in terms of celestial ways and created several forbidden lands. The next time it happened was when the demon world beyond bordered the star boundary. Countless otherworldly demons descended upon the star boundary and wreaked havoc. That calamity affected a wide area. Even the divine beasts, the true dragon clan and the phoenix clan, were annihilated. Countless immortal cultivation sects were slaughtered and their legacies severed. Among them, there were many sects stronger than our exalted immortal sect, the celestial spirit sect, and the myriad phenomenon sect, but none of them survived. Pang Fong's tone was unusually somber as he spoke. The exalted immortal sect's backbone had been broken during that war. Even after tens of thousands of years, it had yet to recover to its peak, and was only ranked third in the firmament territory. The exalted immortal sect had once been the #1 sect in the firmament territory. Then, what will happen this time? Will the immortals wreak havoc, or will the otherworldly demons descend? Lu Wenshu asked quickly. I don't know, but judging from the timing, it's very likely that the demon world beyond is bordering the star boundary again. I don't know the exact time, but it's definitely within the next 100 years, or even the next 10. That's why the Myriad Phenomenon sect made such a huge bet and threw out Situ Zheng despite the potential danger. The Celestial Spirits sect, on the other hand, let it go for some reason, and even had their previous chief disciple publicly support it. As he spoke, Pang Fong shook his head, seemingly puzzled. But more than that, he was worried. The exalted immortal sect hadn't received any news about it. In other words, the Celestial Spirits sect and the Myriad Phenomenon sect weren't playing along with them, which made him very uncomfortable. As the third most powerful immortal cultivation sect in the firmament territory, the exalted immortal sect wasn't one of the top 10 factions in the star boundary, like the Celestial Spirits sect and the Myriad Phenomenon sect, but it had once been prosperous and had produced many great immortal cultivators. It had a deep foundation and 7 or 8 nascent spirit cultivators. Will this affect the exalted immortal sect? Lu Wenshu blinked, sensing that something was wrong. The previous chief disciple of the Celestial Spirit sect, Lord Ask, was a proud man. He still remembered Lord Ask's indifference and arrogance when they'd first met, but Lord Ask had publicly declared that he was inferior to Lord Ask in the same realm. There was something very fishy about this. Not to mention, Lord Ask's timing was very clever. It happened not long after Situ Zheng publicly announced his tribulation. Of course it will. If Situ Zheng successfully survives his tribulation, it means that he's established his power. When the tribulation comes, he'll surely rise to prominence and become a young leader. When that happens, the exalted immortal sect will have nothing to do with him. Therefore, we must also be prepared. Pang Fong frowned. Are we going to make a move during his tribulation? Lu Wenshu's heart skipped a beat, his expression grave. That won't be necessary. If the Myriad Phenomenon sect dares to throw Situ Zheng into the mix at this time, they must have made ample preparations. When the tribulation comes, anyone who gets close will be treated as a fellow tribulation taker and be struck by it. No one will dare make a move at this time. When facing the heavenly tribulation, Situ Zheng's own strength and the treasures that the Myriad Phenomenon sect had prepared would increase his chances of surviving the heavenly tribulation to at least 80%. Therefore, from the beginning to the end of his tribulation, it's almost impossible for outsiders to interfere. The real key is after the tribulation, when Situ Zheng ascends to the nascent spirit realm. That's the best time for our enemies to strike. However, we won't and can't be the ones to make a move. Most of the Myriad Phenomenon sect's nascent spirit realm experts will likely turn out in full force to protect Situ Zheng. Even the Celestial Spirit sect will likely send experts to protect him. As for Situ Wu, sect master of the Myriad Phenomenon sect, he'll definitely come to Blackwind Canyon in person. Situ Wu is a peak nascent spirit realm expert. Only a handful of peak nascent spirit realm cultivators like him can match his strength. With him around, the exalted immortal sect alone won't be enough. Pang Fong paused, a trace of helplessness flashing through his eyes. He and Situ Wu were of the same generation, but from the start of their cultivation, Situ Wu had always been ahead above him. Even though they were both peak nascent spirit realm cultivators, Situ Wu was a peak nascent spirit realm cultivator, while he was only a peak nascent spirit cultivator. His battle prowess was a level lower, so when he faced the other party, his aura would often be weaker, which was very depressing. Of course, if the exalted immortal sect doesn't make a move, someone else will. The 9-star Dao Palace, the 100,000 Peaks, and even Mount Azure Mystic won't allow the youth leader to fall into the hands of Situ Zheng of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Let's see, there'll be a good show to watch. Pang Fong paused, then continued. Although we can't make a move directly, we can't let the Celestial Spirit sect and the Myriad Phenomenon sect join forces either. I heard that the reason why the Celestial Spirit sect agreed to let Situ Zheng be the future youth leader was not only because Situ Zheng's strength was far superior to the Celestial Spirit sect's younger generation, but also because the Myriad sect had agreed to a marriage alliance with the Celestial Spirit sect. Situ Zheng will also choose a fairy from the Celestial Spirit sect to be his Dao partner. Of course, there are many other opportunities for cooperation between the two sections. Marriage alliance? Choose a fairy as his Dao partner? Who? Lu Wenshu asked, stunned. This was very surprising. But then again, if Situ Zheng really did become the youth leader, he would almost certainly become the sect master of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. A marriage between a Celestial Spirit sect disciple and the sect master of the Myriad Phenomenon sect would be a great story. Naturally, this wasn't good news for the exalted immortal sect. That's right. If I'm not mistaken, it should be Fan Qingyu, the disciple of Fairy Luohua, who's had contact with Situ Zheng. Fan Qingyu is also a genius cultivator, said to be born in the ancient desolate realm, a barren land of immortal methods. However, in just a few years, he had risen from the aperture enlightening realm all the way to the peak divine realm. This cultivation speed is unparalleled in her generation. Add to that her natural beauty, like a fairy descending to the mortal world, and she's admired by countless disciples in the Celestial Spirit sect. I heard that Situ Zheng has fallen in love with her and has visited her Clear Rain pavilion many times just to see her. Saying this, Pang Fong smiled and looked at his disciple, Lu Wenshu, and said, "The reason why I summoned you here is so that you can try your best to destroy the marriage between the two sections. Try your best to get close to Fan Qingyu. I believe that with your strength, appearance, and the otherworldly aura unique to the exalted immortal sect, anyone would be tempted. You'll be able to win her heart in a short time. If you can win her heart, it'll be a great service to the exalted immortal sect." Only now did Pang Fong reveal his true intentions, his tone solemn. "Disciple, I will obey your orders." Hearing this, Lu Wenshu's eyes lit up, involuntarily shining brightly. If he'd been asked to fight Situ Zheng, he wouldn't have dared make the slightest move, even if they were both peak golden core cultivators. Situ Zheng's strength and methods had long been renowned throughout the world, and he wasn't someone he could match. But when it came to wooing a fairy, no one would dare claim first place if he claimed second place. But there's one thing you must do. If you do anything underhanded, I won't be able to protect you in the Celestial Spirit sect. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Fairy Luohua was hurt by love in her early days. She won't show any mercy to any cultivator of the opposite sex who gets close to her or her disciples. If you don't take care of things properly, I won't be able to do anything even if she kills you. Plus, you don't have much time left. You only have 20 days. Once Situ Zheng succeeds in his tribulation, the Myriad sect will unite with the Celestial Spirit sect and announce the marriage alliance to the world. If you dare make any rash moves at that time, you'll be courting death as well. Pang Fong hurriedly reminded Lu Wenshu of something. "Yes, Master." Lu Wenshu nodded, but he was also a little nervous. He suddenly realized that this wasn't an easy task. Chapter 776. It's indeed a place where the wind and clouds gather. There's still more than 10 days until Situ Zheng's tribulation in the Black Wind Canyon, but there are already so many cultivators nearby. Not only are most of the Golden Core realm experts from the immortal sects here, but there are also many low-level cultivators here to join the fun. Ziyue's figure flickered as he stood on top of a mountain. He was slightly surprised. However, on second thought, it was quite normal. It was natural for countless cultivators to gather in a place where the wind and clouds gathered. Fortunately, it was still early. If they waited until the day of the tribulation, the entire mountain would be filled with immortal cultivators from all over the world. With so many cultivators gathered, there was no shortage of fights and grudges. Some of them would even reveal their treasures occasionally, resulting in fatal incidents. This kind of thing happened frequently in the world of immortal arts, and could be said to be rare and common. Even if Bai Ziyu noticed it occasionally, he would not pay attention to it. He chose a mountain and set up a simple grade 4 fog formation. This formation was very obvious in the mountains, but in the vicinity of the Black Wind Canyon, which was filled with cultivators, it was enough to let people know that this mountain already had an owner, and the owner's strength was definitely not weak. If one didn't want to cause trouble, it was best to stay far away from it. As such, Ziyue was able to enjoy some peace and quiet. As for himself, he had entered the cultivation room of the rules in the Kunwa Golden Pagoda to cultivate in silence. Be it the Heart Sword art, the True Dragon Armor art, or the 9 Lightning God-Destroying Seal, they were all outstanding Dao arts. As a result, the difficulty of cultivating them was many times higher than ordinary Dao arts. Since his stats panel was still upgrading, he could not use the time to comprehend the Dao. He could only rely on the cultivation room of the rules to improve his cultivation progress. It was worth mentioning that ordinary Dao arts required the support of various natural resources to form the seeds of the Dao arts, allowing the Dao arts to take shape and unleash a terrifying power. However, the 3 supreme Dao arts did not require many materials. They focused more on the application of the rules of the heavens and earth, as well as the understanding and arrangement of the rules. There were many things that had to be comprehended. If one did not comprehend them, it would be difficult to truly pry into the true mysteries of Dao techniques. It was also because of this that this kind of supreme Dao technique could only be learned by those with exceptional talent and an incomparably profound understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. Although Ziyue's foundation was deep and his comprehension of the Dao laws far surpassed that of ordinary cultivators, his realm was still insufficient after all. It was naturally very difficult for him to cultivate at the beginning. Fortunately, the Law Cultivation Room was indeed a treasure that countless primordial spirit realm cultivators would go crazy over. It could even increase the chances of a peak primordial spirit realm cultivator advancing to the spirit severing stage by 30%. Under the effects of the Law Cultivation Room, Ziyue's cultivation progress of many wondrous techniques was truly incomparably fast. Although he couldn't see the specific cultivation progress of these true techniques because his attribute panel was still in the process of upgrading, he still couldn't see it. However, with his understanding of his own cultivation, it was not difficult for him to determine the progress of his cultivation. His progress in the Heart Sword art was the fastest, probably because he was good at using the Flying Sword art. He was about 30% of the uninitiated level. As for the True Dragon Mystic Armor technique, its progress was around 20%. Although his cultivation progress was slightly slower, this supreme defensive technique had the most obvious effect on his strength. This was because the True Dragon Mystic Armor technique was a top-notch defensive technique that integrated both inside and outside. When it was used, not only could it form a defensive membrane outside his body, similar to the True Dragon Mystic Armor, it could also increase the strength of his physical body. Although it was only 20% of the uninitiated level, it had already increased the strength of his physical body by 1-fold. He believed that once this True Dragon Mystic Armor technique reached the uninitiated level, or even the initial level, greater level, or complete level, it would definitely increase the strength of his physical body by another 10 times, or even dozens of times. In this way, the increase in his strength would be similarly huge. As for the 9 Thunder God-Destroying Seal, it was a primordial spirit attack technique. It had a higher requirement on the strength of the primordial spirit of the cultivator. Although Ziyue's soul was complete and he had the great soul golden silk, he had ultimately not passed the thunder tribulation and truly attained the primordial spirit. Therefore, it was relatively more difficult for him to cultivate it. Even with the help of the Law Cultivation Room, he only reached about 10% of the uninitiated level. Another thing worth mentioning was that in order to preserve his life, he had to be as comprehensive and simple as possible. Therefore, he chose a supreme speed-type Dao technique from the many inheritances, traveling 1,000 miles in an instant. The supreme Dao technique was one that he had carefully selected from the inheritance of the Heart Sword True Highness. It was not a true art that the Heart Sword True Highness had invented, but a technique that he had obtained by accident in an immortal ancient mystical ground. According to the Heart Sword True Highness, the supreme Tao technique had played an important role in allowing the Heart Sword True Highness to reach the peak primordial spirit realm and become an expert of the supreme realm. Otherwise, the Heart Sword True Highness would have died long ago. Even the Heart Sword True Highness was able to create the Heart Sword True Highness Heart Sword True Highness Heart Sword True Highness because of the mystical inspiration of traveling 1,000 miles in an instant. As the supreme Tao technique was the last to be cultivated, its progress was naturally the lowest. It had only reached 5% of the uninitiated level. That being said, even though the cultivation room of rules can greatly improve my cultivation speed of Tao arts and supreme arts, it also consumes quite a lot of my spiritual stones. The total amount of spiritual stones I have to spend in a single day of cultivation is comparable to the entire fortune of a peak golden core realm cultivator. Zhu calculated silently and felt a slight heartache. His previous trip to the Dragon Palace had given him a huge harvest that was comparable to 100 years of work of some top sections. Otherwise, he would not have been able to bear such a consumption. Although the consumption of the 4 supreme Tao techniques is high, it will be worth it if I can cultivate them to the beginner level before the attribute panel is completely upgraded. By then, after the attribute panel is upgraded, I can use my spiritual energy to upgrade these supreme Tao techniques to the complete level. Then, my strength will definitely soar again to an unimaginable level. Ziyue was looking forward to it and could not help but feel excited. If his plan really worked, it would not be impossible for him to possess the combat power of a peak primordial spirit realm cultivator while he was only at the peak golden core realm. Continue to cultivate. Anyway, I have enough spiritual stones now. They are enough to allow me to cultivate in the law cultivation room for a long time. After Ziyue sorted out his gains from the first day of cultivation, he once again immersed himself in cultivation. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, time flew by, and 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Senior sister, Lu Wenshu has been visiting more frequently recently. Sidu Zheng has also been here from time to time. It is clear that he cares about senior sister a lot. Both of them could be considered among the most talented youths in the Firmament territory. One of them was the true disciple of the exalted immortal sect master, a peak golden core realm cultivator. Most importantly, he was handsome and had an air of immortality. The other was a genius of the world. He was the son of the myriad sect master and the only disciple of old monster Cloudmist. He was known as the top figure of the younger generation and was invincible in the golden core realm. Although he was not as good-looking as Lu Wenshu, he was a good match. Countless fairies of the various sects would be proud to win the heart of one of them, but senior sister has won the favor of 2 of them. A female cultivator with a delicate face looked at the purple-clad female cultivator sitting in front of her with admiration. This purple-robed female cultivator had a delicate face and a graceful figure. Every move she made was filled with an extreme beauty that seemed to fit the great Tao of heaven and earth. She was like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world, a goddess that had descended to the mortal world. Her face was expressionless as she listened to the comments of her junior sisters. Her brows were slightly furrowed, revealing a trace of worry. However, this frown did not hide her beauty at all. Instead, it added a melancholy beauty to her that was breathtaking. Looking at this beautiful scene, the female cultivators below were amazed. However, they did not feel jealous at all. They knew that senior sister had shown amazing talent as soon as she entered the sect because of her special physique. After she became Fairy Luohua's disciple, she quickly broke through to the god realm and awakened her innate divine ability. It was this innate divine ability that made her shine. Her every move was in accordance with heaven and earth's Tao and contained endless beauty. As for them, they were able to get close to senior sister and observe her beauty at close range. They were able to comprehend heaven and earth's Tao and gain many benefits. Even their cultivation path was much smoother because of this. Their cultivation speed had more than doubled. In this way, how could they dare to hold grudges? Even if they really had such thoughts, they would not dare to show it. Because once they did, they would definitely be expelled from Senior Sister's Clear Rain building. Senior Sister, what do you think of these two people? Who do you like more? Suddenly, a plump female cultivator asked curiously. Who do you like more? The other female cultivators around her were also curious. I don't like anyone. The purple-clad female shook her head and said coldly. Inexplicably, the image of a cold young man appeared in her mind. In the Wu country, he protected her all the way through mountains and rivers and killed dozens of bandits. In the ancient Desolation City, he suddenly appeared when she was in danger and killed all the sect's enemies. Because of this, he provoked the Celestial Spirit sect's disciples, who were invincible to the local cultivators of the ancient Desolation region. He was surrounded and killed, but he was still able to break out of the encirclement. These scenes are like yesterday's replay. When she thought about it, her heart trembled. Where are you? Are you still suffering in the ancient Desolation region? Or have you walked out of the prison in the ancient Desolation region alone and come here in pursuit of the great Tao? Her eyes darkened and her thoughts were in a mess. Even though she had been in the Celestial Spirit sect for several years, she had secretly cleaned up the group of Celestial Spirit sect disciples who had stepped into the ancient Desolation region and made the Celestial Spirit sect not pursue the matter with the young man. However, she still remembered her promise and how he had fought against a group of heroes alone. She also firmly believed that he would come to the firmament territory to meet her, as he had said. However, after joining the Celestial Spirit sect, from many records of the Celestial Spirit sect, she had already understood the unique situation of the ancient Desolation region being destroyed in the Great War of the Immortals 10,000 years ago, as well as the dangers and secrets it contained. Naturally, she also knew that it was impossible for him to walk out of the prison that contained countless dangers and reach the firmament territory by himself. However, it will be soon. Soon, I will break through to the Golden Core Realm. Once I break through to the Golden Core Realm, I will have the opportunity to leave the sect. At that time, I will definitely return to the ancient Desolation region and get you out. Her eyes flashed with incomparable determination. Even with the strength of the Golden Core Realm, it was still very dangerous to enter the ancient Desolation region. However, she could not wait any longer. Moreover, my sister can't wait any longer. Then, she thought of her sister, Zhao Yu'er. Compared to her, Zhao Yu'er missed him more intensely. In order to leave for the ancient Desolation region as soon as possible, her sister cultivated much more crazily than her. If she had not stopped her, she reckoned that she would have already left for the ancient Desolation region alone in the Endless Ocean. Master is here. Suddenly, one of the junior sisters spoke. Then, a female cultivator in a plain Taoist robe, who was equally beautiful, walked over from afar. In the blink of an eye, she came from afar and arrived at the Little Clear Rain building. The person who came was the master of the group of female cultivators, the top primordial soul realm expert of the Celestial Spirit sect, Fairy Luohua. Fan Qingyu greets Master. The girl in purple regained her senses and said respectfully, "Greetings, Master." The other junior sisters also stood up and said respectfully, "You may rise." Fairy Luohua waved her hand and then looked at Fan Qingyu with a smile. "I believe you know that Situ Zheng is going to announce the heavenly tribulation today. Situ Zheng is the top Golden Core realm cultivator of the current generation. When he broke through to the Golden Core realm, he condensed the rare amethyst Golden Core. The scene of his heavenly tribulation will definitely be extraordinary. For many Golden Core realm cultivators, it is a great opportunity. They can learn a lot from it and prove themselves. This will increase their chances of passing the heavenly tribulation and reaching the primordial soul realm. Although you have not accumulated enough energy to break through to the Golden Core realm. However, Such a grand occasion and the scene of the heavenly tribulation will be extremely beneficial to your future cultivation. Therefore, I would like you to follow me to the Black Wind Canyon to watch the ceremony. When Fan Qingyu heard this, she was silent for a while before replying respectfully, yes. Oh yes, after the ceremony, there will be a huge commotion. When the time comes, stay close to me and don't move around. After that, if Situ Zheng succeeds in passing the heavenly tribulation and reaches the primordial soul realm, you just have to answer according to your heart. There is no need to make yourself suffer. I, Fairy Luohua's disciple, am not someone's bargaining chip. As Fairy Luohua spoke, she paused for a moment before continuing. Fan Qingyu's eyes lit up when she heard this. She replied again, yes. Her tone was obviously much brighter. Chapter 777. What about junior sister? Fan Qingyu seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked. She is still in seclusion and will be out for an indefinite amount of time. Let her be. Luohua Fairy naturally knew who the junior sister Fan Qingyu was talking about was. The many junior sisters below would not overthink and think that Fan Qingyu was talking about them. They were very clear that there was only one junior sister whom senior sister Qingyu would deliberately ask about. That was Zhao Yu'er, who was born in the ancient barren region with her, and whom she regarded as her god-sister. Yes, Fan Qingyu replied in a graceful manner and didn't say anything else. I've been cultivating diligently in the cultivation room for 7 days. I've finally improved the progress of my Dao arts and supreme arts. In a barren mountain surrounded by fog, Zue slowly opened his eyes in a quaint and small golden pagoda that looked inconspicuous. During these 7 days, Bai Ziyue did not take a single step out of the law cultivation room. He had been diligently cultivating. The precept cultivation room, which required a large number of spirit stones to open, was indeed a treasure that countless primordial soul realm cultivators would go crazy over. It was a treasure that even peak primordial soul realm cultivators did not hesitate to leave their painstakingly created inheritance in the memory inheritance hall of the Dragon Palace. In just a short 7 days, his cultivation of many true skills had improved to an unbelievable level. Although the attribute panel has not been upgraded, based on my understanding of the cultivation of many Supreme Dao techniques, if I calculate based on the attribute panel's display, I should be at least 10% of the precept cultivation room. My cultivation of the Heart Sword Art should have reached around 90% of the uninitiated level. Although I haven't officially initiated it, I can already unleash a trace of the mystery of the One Heart Sword Art. Bai Ziyue pondered silently. With a thought, his soul power silently enveloped his life-bound flying sword. In an instant, he felt that his mind and the entire flying sword had a resonance. It was as if the two were originally one and could not be separated. Then, the flying sword trembled slightly and instantly rushed out of Ziyue's body. Chi! Its speed was extremely fast, and it quickly cut through the sky. He rushed out of the law cultivation room, rushed out of the Kunwa Golden Pagoda, and directly pierced into the nameless barren mountain. Without a sound, it pierced thousands of meters deep into the mountain and actually pierced into the underground cave of the nameless barren mountain. And under the cave, although it was still, there was a volcanic magma that did not stop squirming. A divine realm, flaming demonic beast, was entrenched in the magma of the volcano. Ziyue's flying sword pierced through and paused for a moment. Then, as if it had a mind of its own, it saw the flaming demonic beast and pointed directly at its head. The flying sword didn't even touch the beast's body. It was still more than 3 feet away from its head. As a result, its vitality was scattered by the sword chi. It died and was completely drowned by the lava of the volcano. This is the heart sword technique. Wherever the mind wills, the flying sword will go. Not only does it contain the power of my core essence, but it is also supported by my soul. Because of this, their power is often much stronger than ordinary Dao techniques. Ziyue was really satisfied with this effect. Although such a power couldn't be considered his strongest technique, He was looking forward to seeing how terrifyingly powerful the Heartsword art would be when it reached the Great Perfection stage. Next, the one with the fastest cultivation progress is that Supreme Speed type Dao technique, Instant Speed, which allows me to travel 1,000 miles in a single breath. It has reached 80% of the uninitiated level. Next is the Real Dragon Dark Armor technique. Its cultivation progress is about 75% of the uninitiated level. This supreme defensive Taoist technique is indeed one of the rare secret techniques that can enhance my strength. Just the cultivation progress of 75% of the uninitiated level has increased the strength of my physical body by almost 2 times. Now, in terms of physical strength, I reckon that the scaled demonic beasts of the same realm may not be able to defeat me. Ziyue looked at his physical body. Its appearance had not changed at all. It was as white as paper and looked as tender as a baby. He couldn't help but reach out and pinch it. His skin was soft as if water could be squeezed out. However, when he exerted force, the toughness seemed to be blocked by a layer of invisible great Tao. It was impossible to scratch it. Even if he took out a Dharma treasure to cut it, it would be like cutting through cowhide with a blunt knife. It would be difficult to leave a mark. I'd like to see how strong my physical body will be when I upgrade the True Dragon Mysterious Armor technique to the complete realm. I reckon that even a real dragon of the same realm would not be a match for me. He had the confidence in his heart. Although the True Dragon Mysterious Armor technique was a secret technique created by the Dragon Clan's experts, there were very few people who could cultivate it to the complete realm. Ziyue had the attribute panel and would definitely be able to perfect it in the future. Naturally, he had the confidence to make such a comparison. On the other hand, the 9 Thunder God Destroying Seal is indeed much more difficult to cultivate. Even after spending a lot of time in the Law Cultivation Room, I only managed to reach 30% of the uninitiated level of the uninitiated level. Frowning slightly, his face quickly revealed a look of relief. The more difficult it was to cultivate, the more it showed how strong the Essence Spirit secret skill was. Even though he had only reached 30% mastery, he could feel the terrifying power of this secret skill when he occasionally used it. The 4 supreme Taoist arts are all improving at a steady pace. At this rate of cultivation, the further one progressed, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. By the time Situ Zheng transcends his tribulation, he will most likely be able to break through to the entry level. Ziyue's heart was filled with anticipation. His eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but look at the attribute panel. Seeing that the attribute panel's upgrade progress had reached 35%, his mood became even better. Based on this calculation, the official upgrade time of the attribute panel coincided with the time of Situ Zheng's tribulation. Even if there was a difference, it would only be a few days. Wong. At this moment, Ziyue suddenly felt the Qing Xian Mountain token that he had obtained from Taoist Xian of the Qing Xian Mountain in the northern underworld Grotto Heaven vibrating. He frowned slightly. Due to the isolation of the northern underworld Grotto Heaven, the Qing Xian Mountain token would not be able to transmit any ordinary messages. Because of this, he had always been the one to use the Qing Xian Mountain token to contact Taoist Xian of the Qing Xian Mountain. There would never be a situation where someone from the Qing Xian Mountain would take the initiative to contact him, unless someone used some unfathomable method to activate the mother token within the Qing Xian Mountain. Only when the mother token sends a message, the Qing Xian Mountain token would be able to transmit the message through the Grotto Heaven treasure. Instinctively, he judged that the message from the Qing Xian Mountain at this time was not a good thing. However, he still flipped his hand and took out the Qing Xian Mountain token from the northern underworld Grotto Heaven. Whoosh! In the next moment, a clear image suddenly appeared in the void. This image belonged to the elder of the Qing Xian Mountain, the Taoist Xian of the intermediate primordial soul realm, who had been in contact with him all this time. Taoist North Underworld. Taoist Xian bowed slightly and revealed an apologetic expression. He said, "I am sorry. Due to the urgency of the matter, I hastily used the mother token of the Qing Xian mountain to transmit a message to you. If I have disturbed your cultivation, please forgive me. Speak, what is it? Ziwei waved his hand and said casually. The previous few collaborations with the Qing Xian mountain could be considered pleasant. He would not be angry over such a small matter. I wonder if Taoist North Underworld has heard about Situ Zheng of the Wanxiang sect going through the tribulations publicly? Taoist Xian did not beat around the bush and asked straightforwardly. Ziwei raised his eyes slightly and revealed a hint of surprise. He did not expect Taoist Xian to look for him this time because of Situ Zheng's tribulations. However, his tone was calm as he said, I have heard about it. It couldn't be better if you know about it. However, you may not know that Situ Zheng's tribulations this time have a huge impact, and there are very complicated implications behind it. The most important point is the opportunity to attain Tao. Taoist Xian said in a serious tone. The opportunity to attain Tao? Ziwei raised his eyebrows. Yes, the opportunity to attain Tao. This Tao is not the Tao of the primordial spirit, but the Tao of the spirit severing of the immortal path that is above the primordial spirit. As Taoist Xian said this, a deep voice suddenly sounded from the side. Let me explain to you, North Underworld. Following it, a handsome cultivator with long white hair appeared in the image. Greetings, North Underworld. I am the leader of the Qing Xian Mountain, Daoqing Mountain. As he said this, he smiled and continued. You may not know this, but in the next 100 years or even 10 years, the entire astral realm will experience a great calamity. When the calamity comes, anyone, as long as they are from the astral realm, will not be able to escape it. If I am not wrong, this calamity will most likely be the calamity of the extraterrestrial demons. Of course, it could also be the descent of the immortals or other calamities. In short, the calamity is coming, and the astral realm will be in turmoil. This is a great crisis for all the cultivators in the astral realm, but it also contains a great opportunity. This opportunity is the opportunity to attain Tao. As he said this, an inexplicable look flashed across Daoqing Mountain's eyes. It was as if he was looking forward to it. Ziwei remained silent and listened. Although he did not show any expression on his face, he was faintly restless. He knew that Daoqing Mountain was at the peak of the primordial spirit realm and was suspected to have the strength of the supreme realm. If even he valued the opportunity to attain Tao so much, one could imagine how important it was. However, he still did not know how this had anything to do with the public heavenly tribulation. Fortunately, Daoqing Mountain did not make him wait for long and quickly explained again. This time, Situ Zheng is publicly undergoing the heavenly tribulation. If he fails, it will be fine. But if he succeeds, he will definitely gain a great reputation. In particular, his strength is amazing. He is invincible in the golden elixir realm and is the strongest among the younger generation in the firmament territory. Countless people worship him. When the calamity comes, people like him who have a great reputation will always have high hopes for him to become the leader of the younger generation, the leader of the cultivators. As the saying goes, if he has the support of the people, he will be blessed by luck. Naturally, it will greatly increase his cultivation speed, and the possibility of him breaking through the bottleneck of the realm will also be greatly increased. By then, breaking through to the spirit-severing realm, which is above the primordial spirit realm, would be a matter of course. Mountain Lord Dao Chang paused for a moment before continuing, but Mount Qingxian is unwilling to let Situ Zheng become the leader of the younger generation, the leader of the cultivators. Ziwei interrupted Daoqing Mountain and said with a cold smile. It was not difficult to guess. Mount Qingxian was not an immortal cultivation sect. Although it was inextricably linked with many other sects, it was still one of the top 10 forces. Naturally, it would not be willing to sit and watch the Wanxiang sect grow stronger and have a powerful immortal cultivation expert in the future. That's right. This concerns the calamity of the entire astral realm. Any cultivator, whether they are immortal cultivation cultivators, demonic beasts, or even demonic cultivators, is duty-bound. However, it is worth discussing who will be the leader in the end. Therefore, we would like to invite Taoist Bei Ming to join us and strike when Situ Zheng succeeds in his heavenly tribulation. Taoist Su Xian could not help but add. Of course, this time, Situ Zheng dared to make such a big fuss and announce the heavenly tribulation because he has the support of the Wanxiang sect and the Celestial Spirit sect. With the two immortal sects guarding the astral realm together, at least in the outer regions, it is difficult to defend. Although we are also well prepared and have fellow Taoists from other forces to strike together, we are not confident that we can break through and get close to Situ Zheng. Therefore, we thought of you. My fellow Taoist, your strength must still be in the Golden Core realm. If Situ Zheng is said to be invincible in the Golden Core realm and the strongest among the younger generation in the Firmament territory, then I think you could be called the strongest Golden Core realm cultivator in the astral realm for hundreds of millions of years. Going against the odds to kill an immortal is nothing. In a situation where we primordial soul realm cultivators are unable to get close, your Golden Core realm cultivation will make the Wanxiang sect and the Celestial Spirit sect let down their guard. With your skills, even if Situ Zheng has broken through to the primordial soul realm and his strength has increased greatly, it will be difficult for him to resist your killing power, right? As the Daoqing Mountain Lord spoke, his face was full of trust. Qingxian Mountain had the most contact with Ziyue and naturally knew his skills the best. Even a mid-stage primordial soul realm cultivator could not escape from his killing. Even if Situ Zheng had broken through to the primordial soul realm and his strength had increased and become extraordinary, it would be difficult for him to escape from Ziyue's attack. That was to say, they didn't know by Ziyue's record in Dragon Palace. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any doubts at all. Before the cultivators in the Dragon Palace came out, the matter of the Dragon Palace was naturally a secret and was not announced. Once the news was out, it would first spread among the relevant forces. Although Qingxian Mountain's intelligence network was strong, after all, no one was involved in the Dragon Palace. They still needed time to find out the real news. I know that you have a huge feud with the Celestial Spirit sect. If you can take revenge on the Celestial Spirit sect, won't you be happy? Taoist Xu Xuan quickly persuaded. Chapter 778. I do have some grudges with the Heavenly Spirit sect, but what does that have to do with Situ Zheng? Ziyue sneered and said disdainfully. This Mount Qingxian was really funny. Although he had some grudges with the Celestial Spirit sect, this was a matter between him and the Celestial Spirit sect. Naturally, it would be resolved between him and the Celestial Spirit sect. Situ Zheng had nothing to do with the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Not to mention, he had always had the upper hand against the Heavenly Spirit sect. Because of this, he vented his anger and went crazy for revenge. He wasn't that stupid. The Myriad Phenomenon sect and the Heavenly Spirit sect must have made ample preparations for Situ Zheng's heavenly tribulation. Moreover, the Heavenly Spirit sect was no weakling. Of course, the inescapable net was involved as well. He didn't want to get involved in this mess. As long as you agree to help, I can agree to let you become my disciple. I can even promise you that you will be the next Mount Qingxian Mountain Master. In this way, you will also have the opportunity to represent Mount Qingxian and compete for your position as the youth leader. I believe that with your strength and the support of Mount Qingxian, it will not be difficult for you to achieve this. At that time, there will be no shortage of resources. With the support of Mount Qingxian and countless cultivators in the world, it will be a smooth journey. It will not be difficult for him to attain the spirit-severing stage and become an almighty of the celestial path. Mountain Lord Dao Cheng knew that ordinary things would not be able to attract Ziyue's attention. Therefore, he was willing to accept him as his disciple. Furthermore, he was the mountain master of Mount Qingxian, one of the top 10 immortal spells forces. Furthermore, he was at the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm and had terrifying combat strength that was comparable to that of an ultimate realm cultivator. He believed that no golden elixir realm cultivator would reject him. He didn't dare to refuse. Mountain Lord Taoist Su Xian was shocked to hear this. Being the disciple of the Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian was not a big deal, but directly promising to make Ziyue the next Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian and to do his best to help him become a youth leader in the upcoming calamity was too serious. Even he was moved. However, after pondering over Mountain Lord Dao Cheng's words and thinking about how shrewd Mountain Lord Dao Cheng was, he relaxed. Although this promise was heavy, one should not forget that Ziyue had to agree to help Sidu Zheng after he succeeded in his tribulation. If the attack failed, Ziyue would not be able to escape from the Myriad Phenomenon sect and Heavenly Spirit sect, no matter how powerful he was. Even if he succeeded, it was still unknown whether he would be able to charge out of the encirclement of so many experts. Of course, if Ziyue really succeeded in killing Sidu Zheng and escaping successfully, Sidu Zheng would not be able to escape. With such strength and means, no one in Mount Qingxian would be able to say anything. Even if he really became the Mountain Lord of Mount Qingxian, it would only increase the strength of Mount Qingxian. For Qingxian Mountain, there was no loss. A win-win situation. Furthermore, Mount Qingxian had won twice. Thank you for your kind intentions, Mountain Lord Dao Cheng. However, I have no intention of becoming your disciple. Ziyue slowly shook his head and refused. Indeed, the Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian personally invited him to be his disciple. Although it was a serious matter, it would also cause countless cultivators to flock to him. However, he was definitely not one of those people. If he wanted the inheritance, so what if the Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian was an expert of the supreme state? Could he be better than the inheritance of the 3 separation of gods that he had obtained from the Dragon Palace? As for the so-called next Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian and the promise to represent Mount Qingxian in the youth leadership contest, did he really think that he could not see through the other party's scheme? If he succeeded, he might be able to fulfill his promise. But what if he failed? He did not think that he was really invincible in the world and that he could provoke powerful enemies without any scruples. One should know that both Heavenly Spirit sect and Myriad Phenomenon sect had experts of the supreme state. Unlike the injured extraterrestrial demon, who could really kill him with his bare hands, such an expert could not attack him like he did before. This time, if what Mountain Lord Dao Cheng said was true, and the 2 sects were planning something big, there would definitely be experts of such level. He refused. How could he? How dare he refuse? Taoist Xu Xuan's eyes suddenly widened as he looked at Ziyue in disbelief. He believed that anyone would be tempted by such a great temptation. Even if it was him, he would be tempted by such a promise and could not help but want to try, even if he might encounter great danger in the process. However, he was the Mountain Master of Mount Qingxian. Even if Mount Qingxian was no longer as glorious as it was in the ancient times, such an identity still represented a huge amount of resources and endless wealth. Even if it was piled up, it would be enough to push an ordinary cultivator to the peak of the primordial soul realm. If he was slightly talented, it was very possible for him to become an expert of the supreme state. As for the mighty cultivators of the separation of gods, he did not dare to hope for them. That level was not something that he could pry into. Therefore, he was very shocked that Ziyue could resist the temptation and refuse. Moreover, how dare he refuse? Mountain Lord Dao Cheng was the leader of one of the top 10 forces and the leader of an assassin organization. In the world, other than the top 10 recognized experts of the supreme state, who would dare to go against the will of the Mountain Lord? Did he really think that Mountain Lord Dao Cheng's reputation of being able to decide life and death with a single word was just for show? I advise you to think about it. Mountain Lord Dao Cheng's face showed a hint of surprise as he said in a deep voice, "There's no need to think about it. If you're only looking for me for this matter, then I think we have nothing to talk about." Ziyue shook his head and refused again. Then, He did not say anything else and turned off the Mount Qingxian token. After thinking about it, he did not destroy it directly but threw it into the northern underworld space. Young leader, opportunity to attain Tao. If I want these things, I will naturally obtain them myself. Obtaining them by killing others? It is meaningless to me and does not go with my heart. Not to mention, the so-called young leader, in the end, still depended on strength. Without strength, even if one has that level of identity, it is meaningless. And if one really has strength, why would one need that level of identity to support them? As long as one's achievements are revealed and one's strength is recognized by countless cultivators, the weak will naturally acknowledge them. Ziyue was very clear in his heart. As for whether going against the will of the Mountain Lord of Mount Qingxian would lead to revenge, he was not even afraid of the Celestial Spirit sect and the 9-star Taoist palace. Why would he be afraid of Mount Qingxian? If the Mountain Lord was really so petty and would seek revenge, because of this, he did not mind destroying another mountain when his strength grew in the future. However, as Mountain Lord Daochang said, there will be a catastrophe in the heavens and earth. I have to be careful. Within 100 years, or even 10 years, there will be extraterrestrial demons? The chaos of the immortals? No matter what is going to happen, I have to increase my strength as soon as possible. Because only with great strength can I survive the great changes that may occur in the future. Ziyue could not help but ponder in silence. Fortunately, he was now at the peak of the Golden Elixir realm and could leave his body at any time to receive the Thunder Tribulations. After the Thunder Tribulations, his primordial spirit would be formed. And once he reached the primordial spirit realm, he believed that his strength would definitely soar again. By then, his life-saving means would also increase greatly. He reckoned that even the ultimate primordial spirit realm cultivators would not be a threat to him. I didn't expect that in such a short time of seclusion, there would be so many cultivators gathered around. Then, Ziyue turned his attention to his surroundings. In the mountains, there were many cultivators using immortal methods. Although most of the cultivators were relatively weak, and there were even low-level cultivators in the Qi refinement realm and the Aperture Awakening realm, there were also many cultivators in the Golden Elixir realm. Occasionally, there would even be primordial spirit realm cultivators. With so many cultivators, a place similar to a market was formed in the wilderness. There were all kinds of shops and buildings, and countless cultivators were exchanging and trading. The sound of hawking and peddling could be heard from time to time. Ziyue estimated that there were at least 100,000 cultivators gathered, and as time passed, there would definitely be more cultivators gathering. This time, it's really a grand occasion. However, according to what Mountain Lord Daochang said, there will definitely be a great battle after Sidu Zheng passes the tribulation. By then, it will be hard to say whether these low-level cultivators will be safe. Ziyue looked from afar and could not help but sigh. In a great battle, especially in a situation where there were many top cultivators, low-level cultivators were very helpless. Perhaps just the vibration of primordial spirit or the fluctuation of sword qi could cause a fatal threat to them and cause them to die. Moreover, Situ Zheng's tribulation this time was no less than a battle of the great Tao for many top cultivators. The cultivators participating were of extremely high levels, and there was no lack of peak primordial spirit realm cultivators or even ultimate primordial spirit realm cultivators. In the following period of time, apart from going out occasionally to relax, Ziyue spent most of his time in the nameless Bear Mountain and cultivated in seclusion. 3 days later, Ziyue felt relieved. He immediately knew that he had officially cultivated the Heart Sword technique to the beginner level. Another 2 days later, he also successfully cultivated the Heart Sword technique to the beginner level. On the 10th day, he also cultivated the True Dragon Armor technique, which had been bothering him for a long time, to the beginner level. However, until the day of Situ Zheng's tribulation was about to arrive, he still had not truly cultivated the last Supreme Tao technique, the 9 Lightning God-Destroying Seal, to the beginner level. As expected, This primordial spirit attack technique involves the mysteries of the primordial spirit. The difficulty of cultivating it is indeed many times higher than ordinary supreme Tao techniques. Even with the help of the precept cultivation room, it is already so difficult for me to cultivate it. One can imagine how difficult it would be if I did not have other supplementary techniques. Ziyue could not help but frown after he changed the 9 lightning, god-destroying seal again. The effect of the precept cultivation room was very shocking. He estimated that it would save him at least 100 times, or even 1,000 times, the time he would need to spend. If he took into account the fact that his perception was greatly enhanced by using the Great Spirit Golden Silk, and his cultivation speed was greatly increased, he would save a lot more time than ordinary cultivators. Even so, he still had not reached the beginner level after spending more than 20 days. This made him truly understand how high the threshold of this technique was. Ordinary cultivators would probably need 10 to 20 years to reach the beginner level. Of course, this was the 9 lightning, god-destroying seal. If it were some relatively ordinary primordial spirit attack technique, even if the difficulty of cultivating it was also extremely high, it would probably take much less time than this technique. Apart from that, Ziyue estimated that it was also related to the strength of his soul. After all, he had not experienced the baptism of the primordial spirit tribulation. Even if the strength of his soul was shocking and had reached perfection, and he also had the support of the Great Spirit Golden Silk, he still lacked the pure yang energy that was unique to primordial spirit cultivators after the baptism of the lightning tribulation. Naturally, it would be more difficult in terms of cultivation. However, at least I have cultivated the 9 lightning god-destroying seal to the beginner level of 99%. I am only one step away from the beginner level. I estimate that it will not be long before I can officially reach the beginner level. Ziyue heaved a sigh of relief. He was not worried at all. Perhaps it was just a moment of inspiration, or perhaps at some point he would be able to break through this hurdle unknowingly and reach the beginner level. He was not in a hurry. This time, the Black Wind Canyon is truly bustling with noise and excitement. There are too many Golden Elixir Realm cultivators gathered here. Not only are there many young experts, but there are also many old Golden Elixir Realm cultivators who are rumored to have died in the outside world. Among them, there are also some Golden Elixir Realm cultivators from outside the Firmament territory who have crossed over to this place. Countless cultivators gathered in the Black Wind Market, and all kinds of conversations were naturally endless. At this moment, as the day of Situ Zhang's tribulation approached, the originally small market suddenly became even more vast. The degree of bustle was even comparable to some of the vast immortal cities. Among them, the weakest were naturally a group of weak Qi refinement realm cultivators. However, among the Qi refinement realm cultivators who appeared in the Black Wind Market, even the weakest one was at the 7th or 8th level of the Qi refinement realm. Most of them were at the Aperture Awakening realm and the God realm. Of course, there were also many Golden Elixir realm perfected cultivators. These cultivators came from various sects and were naturally very well informed. Ziyue only sat in one of the restaurants for a while, and with the divine ability Listen that he had awakened after breaking the shackles of the Golden Elixir realm, he obtained a lot of information. Among them, the most were the experts from various sects who had shown up during this period. Of course, with Ziyue's strength and realm, he did not pay much attention to most of the Golden Elixir realm cultivators. Only true cultivators of the primordial spirit realm or some titled emperor cultivators with great reputations could attract his attention. For example, Wu Zhen of the Nature sect and Jun Maoan of the Celestial Spirit sect. Among them, Wu Zhen of the Myriad Phenomenon sect was the most famous genius cultivator after Sidu Zheng. It was only because of Sidu Zheng that he seemed to be a little low profile. However, without a doubt, without Sidu Zheng, he would be the best candidate for the next sect leader of the Nature sect. He was extremely powerful. He could rival the primordial soul realm cultivators. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.